Hearing what Dai Yuan said, the other three couldn't help speeding up. Wei Guchang and Dong Xin'er asked about the Three Suns Grand Rising phenomenon, while Yang Kai also pretended to be interested and listened carefully. After Dai Yuan spoke about it for a while, Wei Guchang and Dong Xin'er had a fair understanding of what the Three Suns Grand Risings was. But Yang Kai wore a strange expression. He found that although Dai Yuan recognized the red candle fruit and knew about the Three Suns Grand Risings phenomenon, she didn't seem to know everything. Yang Kai couldn't be sure that this gap in knowledge was the same for everyone. But what he was certain of was that it wasn't just Dai Yuan and him who recognized the red candle fruit. All the most elite disciples on Shadowed Star were currently gathered in the third layer, so there must be others who recognized it. After 2 full hours, the group of 4 arrived at their destination, a small mountain valley probably less than 1,000 meters in width. Down inside the mountain valley, there was the familiar dark red cracked landscape filled with gullies and ravines, but surprisingly, if one looked carefully, they would find some dried-up trees as well. These trees were blood red in color and didn't have any trace of vitality, but they were clearly not dead. There was some kind of strange power lingering about that allowed them to survive in this extremely harsh environment. This mountain valley was surrounded by more than 20 large and larger mountain peaks. When Yang Kai and his group of 4 arrived, about half of these mountain peaks were already occupied. Groups from different sects had taken control of these spots and seemingly settled in. Most of the cultivators' eyes were scanning the dead trees in the mountain valley, revealing a look of greed. But what was strange was that there was no one actually inside the mountain valley, as if they had all come to some kind of agreement to restrain themselves. When Yang Kai and his group arrived, countless eyes swept towards their side, many people openly displaying vigilance and disgust. After all, a heaven-defying spirit fruit was about to mature. The fewer people here, the better. However, everyone knew that such an idea was unrealistic. Before the red candle fruit matured, that rising red sun spectacle had already spread across the entire third layer, so it was likely that everyone was either already here or on their way. Even though they were unwilling to accept more competitors, they had no choice but to shoot Yang Kai and his group a glare before turning their eyes away. Yang Kai also swept his eyes over the crowd and couldn't help becoming vigilant as well. The scene this time was indeed magnificent. Although not many people had come, each one was an elite from a great sect. Yang Kai saw people from Heaven Battling Union, Thunder Typhoon Sect, Colored Glass Sect, and many others he couldn't identify. In total, there were at least 70 or 80 present. The 4 of them had come relatively late it seemed, but there were certainly more on their way, so presumably things would only become more chaotic. Yang Kai also saw the stern-faced cultivator that had previously occupied the center of the soul-cleansing divine water pool. This guy had occupied an entire small hill by himself and was standing there as straight as a sword, his arms folded, his expression as indifferent as ever. No one dared to go up and find trouble with him. Anyone who could arrive here could more or less guess the identity of this man, so none of them would even think about trying to annoy him, even if they were upset with his attitude and behavior. On Colored Glass Sect's side, In Sudai's expression became strange after she caught sight of Dai Yuan, as if she didn't expect that this senior sister of hers would appear here with others. But after recognizing Dong Xin'er, her face relaxed and she immediately turned her attention away, showing no intention to go greet Dai Yuan. After a quick glance, Wei Guchang pointed to one of the unoccupied hills and said, "Let's take that one." A moment later, the 4 stood atop the mountain, and like everyone else, set their sights on the mountain valley down below. "Where's the red candle fruit?" Wei Guchang swept his eyes around but found no trace of any kind of spirit fruit. As far as he could see, all there was in the mountain valley were half-dead trees, so he couldn't help asking. "The red candle fruit won't appear before it fully matures." Dai Yuan slowly shook her head. "But there's no doubt it is somewhere inside this mountain valley. When it matures, it will naturally surface." "I see." Wei Guchang gently nodded. "Oh, senior brother Li Yunan from Medicine Pill Sect is coming. I wonder what he wants to say." Dong Xin'er exclaimed lightly as her eyes landed on a middle-aged, scholarly dressed man who seemed to have a gentle atmosphere about him. This man was currently approaching their group and was even smiling and waving to them before he arrived. Yang Kai had also heard of Medicine Pill Sect. No matter the place, there were always sects or forces that specialized in alchemy. Medicine King's Valley in the Great Han Dynasty and the Alchemist Guild in Tongxian Realm were examples of such sects. As for Shadowed Star, Medicine Pill Sect was the representative alchemy sect. This kind of existence was one that most people wouldn't dare to offend because they would inevitably have to seek their services at some point. Inside Medicine Pill Sect, there were 5 origin-grade low-rank alchemists, the largest number by far of any force on Shadowed Star. Each of these 5 was a grandmaster whose name was widely known on Shadowed Star, and anywhere they went they would be treated as honored guests. And since this guy named Li Yunan could penetrate into the 3rd layer of the Flowing Flame Sandfield, he must also be an elite from Medicine Pill Sect. It seems that he, Wei Guchang, and Dong Xin'er knew each other, but whether they shared any real friendship was something Yang Kai couldn't tell yet. Soon, this middle-aged scholarly man named Li Yunan arrived at the mountain where the group of 4 were gathered and cupped his fists to Wei Guchang before saying, "Brother Wei, you've also come." Wei Guchang returned the courtesy and laughed. "For this kind of matter, naturally I must come join the fun." Nearby, Dong Xin'er and Dai Yuan both greeted Li Yunan, with Li Yunan responding in kind, seemingly behaving very politely. He then asked about Yang Kai's name and origin, but Wei Guchang simply interjected and said he had invited him. Although Li Yunan felt it was somewhat strange that Yang Kai, a First-Order Saint King, could arrive here, since he was brought here by Wei Guchang, he didn't ask much. "Brother Li, did you perhaps come to find this way for something?" Wei Guchang narrowed his eyes and got straight to the point. Li Yunan smiled slightly before answering this question with one of his own. "Brother Wei, since you came here after seeing that vision, do you perhaps know what is here?" "I heard it was the red candle fruit," Wei Guchang replied. Li Yunan frowned with surprise, but after glancing over at Dai Yuan, he understood and patted his forehead lightly. It seems this Li has asked a foolish question. Since Ms. Dai Yuan is here, Brother Wei surely would know. In this world, I'm afraid that there is no rare herb that Ms. Dai Yuan does not know of. Senior Brother Li is too polite. Dai Yuan is only slightly versed in this subject, Dai Yuan said lightly. "Haha, Ms. Dai Yuan does not need to act so humble. There are truly few people who can recognize the red candle fruit. Brother Chu from Heaven Battling Union, Brother Fong from Thunder Typhoon Sect, and Sister Een from Colored Glass Sect only learned of it after this one explained it to them. If not for this, how could everyone have restrained themselves so? I'm afraid that everyone would already be digging up the mountain valley if not for this Li providing some small insight." Hearing this, Wei Guchang suddenly understood why everyone was simply standing around the mountain valley waiting. It seems Li Yunan had gone around informing them what was happening. Obviously, he had not done this out of goodwill. With such a precious treasure in front of him, there was no way Li Yunan didn't want to keep it for himself. Him informing others was simply because he didn't want to allow these people to act rashly and interfere with the maturing of the red candle fruit. If someone ignorant of the truth interfered with the red candle fruit and caused it to fail to mature, it would be a great loss to the entire world. So even though he was reluctant to do so, Li Yunan had worked hard to inform each group of cultivators that arrived about the situation. Brother Li's spirit of generosity is truly deep, working so hard for the benefit of the world. This Wei is truly impressed. Wei Guchang wore a sincere look and cupped his fists once more. Receiving such great praise, Li Yunan continually tried to downplay his actions before quickly shifting the subject to his true objective. "I wonder if Brother Wei is interested in joining forces with my medicine pill sect?" Joining forces? Wei Guchang's eyes narrowed slightly as a meaningful grin appeared on his face. "Brother Li, although this Wei is not proficient in the study of spirit herbs, I am aware that there should only be a single red candle fruit here, so how do you propose we work together? If we manage to obtain the red candle fruit, how should it be distributed? Please allow this one to finish explaining before making a decision, Brother Wei." Li Yunan seemed to know that he would react this way, so he didn't show any signs of anxiety, remaining calm and relaxed. "Please do tell, Brother Li, I am listening intently." Although Wei Guchang knew what the Li Yunan was up to, he couldn't simply reject him. After all, offending Medicine Pill Sect was never a good idea. "My meaning is simple. I wish to take the red candle fruit first. Although there is only one spirit fruit, if it is used in alchemy, it should be able to produce more than one pill. Li Yunan glanced over at Wei Guchang, but not seeing any great response, he continued to explain. As far as I know, your Shadow Moon Hall only has a single origin grade low-rank alchemist, and that alchemist only broke through recently, and their success rate of refining origin grade pills isn't very high. If Brother Wei obtained the red candle fruit, the only option would be to have one of your sex elders take it directly, wasting a lot of its medicinal efficacies. Pausing for a moment, a proud look appeared on Li Yunan's face as he declared, "This situation is not only the case for your Shadow Moon Hall, but for all the other great sects, but my medicine pill sect is different. My medicine pill sect has 5 origin grade low-rank alchemists, and although the grade of this red candle fruit is very high, if my medicine pill sect's elders all collaborate, refining more than a dozen pills is quite possible." Wei Guchang finally had a full picture of what the other party wanted to say, narrowing his eyes further as he asked Li Yunan. "What brotherly means is that if we help your medicine pill sect obtain the red candle fruit, after it is refined into pills, my Shadow Moon Hall will be able to obtain a portion." "Good. That is precisely this Li's meaning." Li Yunan nodded repeatedly. "I have made this offer not only to Brother Wei, but also to Brother Chu from Heaven Battling Union, Brother Fong of Thunder Typhoon Sect, Sister Een from Colored Glass Sect, Brother Chu from Twin Heart Valley, and Brother Tang from Floating Mist Palace." "And their response?" Wei Guchang raised his eyebrows. "Haha. Although they've yet to express an opinion yet, this Li believes he can convince them." Li Yunan spoke with confidence. Everyone knew that Li Yunan was talking nonsense. If he really was confident in persuading all these great forces to give up on the red candle fruit and allow Medicine Pill Sect to take sole possession of this heaven-defying treasure, that would truly be strange. Only the things that were held in one's own hands really belonged to them. Li Yunan's remarks held no sincerity or weight at all, so obviously they couldn't be believed. What's more, how could such an important matter be decided upon by mere juniors? When Li Yunan brought the red candle fruit back, his elders would clearly choose death first before recognizing this agreement. Even if all the other sects at that point jointly destroy Medicine Pill Sect, the red candle fruit would surely already be gone. Wei Guchang understood all this perfectly well and knew that once he agreed he would become the sole target of everyone's anger. This was precisely why Chu Changfeng, Fang Tianzhong, Yin Su Dai and Chu Minghai, and Tang Yong had not rashly agreed to such an unreasonable proposal. However, Wei Guchang was also not stupid enough to openly offend Medicine Pill Sect, so after pretending to think seriously on the matter for a moment, he nodded slightly and asked, "If Brother Chu, Brother Fong, and everyone else all agrees, then my Shadow Moon Hall will naturally collaborate. But Brother Li, have you spoken to that guy yet?" Saying so, he quietly motioned towards a nearby mountain. Li Yunan's face twitched slightly. Of course, he knew who it was Wei Guchang was referring to and smiled shamelessly. This Li wanted to communicate with everyone else before discussing things carefully with him. Wei Guchang smiled lightly and shook his head. "This matter cannot be treated so simply. If it were just the few of us here, it would be fine to join forces, but with such a huge variable present, this Wei thinks it best for Brother Li to obtain his agreement first. After achieving that, it won't be too late to discuss things with everyone else." Li Yunan adjusted his expression before cupping his fists and nodding. "What Brother Wei says also makes sense. This Li will take your advice into consideration." Saying so, he turned around and returned back to Medicine Pill Sect's occupied mountain. After he left, Wei Guchang snorted coldly and muttered, "Does he really think I'm an idiot?" Dai Yuan chuckled to the side and said, "The people from Medicine Pill Sect aren't ignorant. Senior brother doesn't need to pay it any mind." This time, not complying with Li Yunan was the right choice. If you had complied with his request, that would have brought you great trouble. "I know that," Wei Guchang nodded seriously. "Enough about that though, this kind of spirit fruit maturing at this time, I don't know if it is an opportunity or calamity." Saying so, he swept his eyes around the surrounding mountains, secretly wondering how many of these people would die in the subsequent fight for the mature red candle fruit. "Let's think about that for now. For now, we should cultivate. Just breathing the air here feels like it is benefiting me. In any case, There is still some time before the Three Suns Grand Rising's phenomenon Big Sister Dai Yuan told us about finishes. We might as well take advantage of this calm while we can, Dong Shen'er proposed. The other three nodded in agreement before finding spots on the small mountain to sit down cross-legged and immerse themselves in the wondrous fragrance filling the air. Yang Kai quickly realized that this red candle fruit really was a heaven-defying treasure. It was just as the ancient records described. A few days before it matured, it would exude a rich fruity aroma that could relax one's mind and body, while also promoting a cultivator's mastery over their power and the comprehension of their realm. Currently, a single red sun had risen, yet there was already such a wondrous effect. Once all three red suns finished rising, the effects would surely become several times more potent. Because he was together with Wei Guchang and the others, Yang Kai wasn't worried about being attacked here. So he only left a small portion of his awareness to monitor surroundings while immersing the rest of his consciousness in this wonderful feeling. Yang Kai was an alchemist himself, and alchemy required a very high degree of control over one's Saint Qi, so he already had a better starting point than most cultivators present. Now, under the stimulation of the red candle fruit's fragrance, all kinds of subtle yet novel ideas came to him about how to further enhance his Saint Qi control, something Yang Kai greatly enjoyed. It was as if he had entered a new world, one in which he could perform the most perfect communication with the power in his body and manipulate it with a never before. While Yang Kai sank into a meditative state to explore this new method of Saint Qi's control, the other three, Wei Guchang, Dong Shen'er, and Dai Yuan, also fell into different states of enlightenment. After experiencing the initial wait-and-see period, the cultivators atop the various big and small hills also began sitting down and inhaling the aroma of the red candle fruit, no longer wasting time. Half a day after Yang Kai's group arrived, a tense but peaceful situation had developed, with everyone focusing on absorbing the benefits of the red candle fruit's fragrance. More people arrived over time, but although most of them were confused when they saw everyone else sitting in meditation, none of them acted rashly and instead quickly found a spot to sit down as well. After inhaling the rich fragrance, the surprise on their faces quickly gave way to a kind of tranquility. At some point, a young-looking cultivator wearing azure robes arrived here alone. This man was the man who tried to go deeper into the third layer, but having arrived a little late, he found that all the peaks near the mountain valley had been occupied. Glancing around coldly, he secretly considered whether he should try to snatch a spot, but he soon dismissed this idea. He had only taken over this body a short while ago and had yet to even see the blue sky again. He didn't want to draw too much attention for the time being. However, when his eyes landed on Yang Kai, who was sitting cross-legged nearby, his eyes suddenly flashed with a look of pleasant surprise. He hadn't expected to see Yang Kai in this place. But soon, his expression became cold and gloomy. He was certain that it was this first-order Saint King that had taken away his most precious treasure. But even after getting this close, he wasn't able to feel any of its aura from this boy. Did he actually manage to absorb it? But that should be impossible. The kind of power hidden inside that thing was something he knew better than anyone. Let alone a cultivator of first-order Saint King strength, even an Origin King would not be able to refine it within a day or two. Moreover, there was a good chance of suffering a massive backlash for even trying. Such a strange reality was staring him right in the face. This young first-order Saint King had obtained his treasure, left the stalactite cave, and in less than an hour later, its aura had disappeared without a trace, and no matter how he urged his tracking method, he was unable to find any clues about its location. But, if he really were to have fused with it, it would be impossible for this boy to still be alive. This incomprehensible situation frustrated this young-looking man greatly. He simply couldn't have imagined that it wasn't Yang Kai himself who had merged with that thing but the soul-warming lotus that had swallowed it to evolve from 6 colors to 7 colors. As he was immersed in his confusion, the young first-order Saint King suddenly opened his eyes and locked his gaze precisely on him across the distance. After the briefest of glances, this man set aside his eyes casually before searching for a not-too-far-away spot and sitting down in meditation like everyone else. Atop a nearby mountain, Yang Kai's brow wrinkled as a disgruntled look appeared on his face. He had been deeply immersed in that strange sensibility when suddenly, he felt someone's gaze upon him, as well as a hint of hostility and murderous intent. He thought that it was Chu Changfeng, but after seeing the man's face, he couldn't help feeling stunned. The source of this hostility wasn't Chu Changfeng, but it was someone Yang Kai had seen before, a man who had entered the soul-cleansing divine water pool back in the stalactite cave. Having his meditation interrupted, Yang Kai was naturally a little unhappy. This man's strength wasn't bad, a peak third-order Saint King, and Yang Kai vaguely remembered that he came from a sect called Flowing Cloud Valley. However, there was an old man and another younger man with him at that time. But now he appeared to be all alone. It was impossible to tell what had happened to the other two from Flowing Cloud Valley. Why would this person have hostile and murderous intent towards him though? Yang Kai didn't remember doing anything to provoke the other party, nor had he exposed any of his secrets in front of him. Being stared at for no apparent reason made Yang Kai somewhat annoyed. Did junior brother Yang discover something? Dai Yuan seemed to perceive that Yang Kai's aura had changed and opened her eyes. Seeing his thoughtful expression, she couldn't help herself from asking. No. Yang Kai shook his head before looking over in a certain direction and asking, "Do you recognize that man?" Dai Yuan followed his gaze and immediately explained his identity. He's a core disciple from Flowing Cloud Valley named Lu Yi. Why? Does Brother Yang have some kind of grievance with him? Lu Yi. Yang Kai silently remembered the name before shaking his head. No, I only encountered him briefly some time ago, but for some reason, he seems to be hostile towards me. It's really quite strange. Dai Yuan's eyes flashed, also feeling the situation was strange. This Lu Yi isn't the type to go around provoking others. Although I have no deep friendship with him, I have spoken a few words with him. His reputation in Flowing Cloud Valley is also quite good. Why would he be hostile to you? That's what I want to know too. Yang Kai grinned. Perhaps Dai Yuan misunderstood something. Thinking that there really was some kind of grudge between Yang Kai and Lu Yi, frowned and reminded softly, Lu Yi is the son of Lu Xiangdong, the sect master of Flow Cloud Valley. Although Flowing Cloud Valley isn't a top force, its strength isn't bad. If it's just some minor matter, I can help you to say a few words to Lu Yi. With his temperament, it shouldn't be difficult to resolve the situation. No need. Yang Kai shook his head. Without mentioning, he really didn't have any grudge with this Lu Yi. Even if he did, he had no need for others to resolve it. If the other party didn't find trouble with him, Yang Kai wouldn't find trouble with them. But if he did, Yang Kai didn't mind solving the issue by cutting weeds and pulling out roots. Seeing Yang Kai refuse her proposal, Dai Yuan naturally didn't say anything more, and was about to continue her meditation when Yang Kai suddenly gestured with his eyes again and asked, "What about that person?" Dai Yuan followed his gaze again and saw the lone stern-faced man occupying a nearby small mountain. When she saw this man, Dai Yuan couldn't help shuddering slightly and immediately retracted her gaze, whispering in a tone filled with the meaning of warning. Junior brother Yang shouldn't inquire about this person too much. I only know that he's probably from Star Emperor sect. However, as for his name or details, I have no idea. Sure enough, he came from Star Emperor sect. Since seeing Chu Changfeng treating this person so carefully back in the stalactite cave, Yang Kai had some suspicions. Only a disciple from Star Emperor sect could let the arrogant Chu Changfeng act so humbly. Even after suffering such a great loss, Chu Changfeng had choked down his anger and dropped the matter, not daring to retaliate. Dai Yuan seemed to be afraid that Yang Kai didn't comprehend how powerful Star Emperor sect was, so she continued with a serious tone. On Shadowed Star, it is publicly known that the three most powerful forces are Star Emperor sect, Heaven Battling Union, and Thunder Typhoon sect, but in fact, every great force knows that the difference between Heaven Battling Union and Thunder Typhoon sect and Star Emperor sect is enormous. It is said that Star Emperor Mountain has over 100 peak third-order origin returning realm masters. This is a terrifying number incomparable to Heaven Battling Union and Thunder Typhoon sect. It's also said that the Star Emperor sect has several powerful origin king-grade artifacts. Are they really so powerful? Yang Kai was genuinely startled. A sect that had over 100 peak third-order origin returning realm masters was something truly astonishing. And their total number of cultivators, though, is relatively low as they never openly recruit disciples, which is why despite their shocking reputation, they aren't all that famous. Then how do they ensure their legacy continued to be passed down? Yang Kai frowned. I'm not completely clear about that, but throughout Shadowed Star's history, there are rumors about some people who possess great fortune and destiny who are met by masters from Star Emperor Mountain and were taken back to be cultivated. However, the number of such cases is quite small. Dai Yuan explained, smiling slightly as she continued. Star Emperor sects people rarely leave Star Emperor Mountain, so although they have many masters, as long as one doesn't try to provoke them, they won't use their strength to bully others. But if someone does provoke them... Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as he noticed that Dai Yuan's tender body was shivering slightly. In his heart, he was stunned, thinking that if someone who really didn't fear the heavens provoked such a terrifying existence, their fate must have been extremely miserable. Dai Yuan lowered her voice even further as she whispered, in general, every few decades, Star Emperor sect will have one or two of its young generation's disciples go out for life experience. These disciples tend to remain very low-key and never reveal their status. So there are times when no one even knows their identity until they return to Star Emperor Mountain. However, I have seen in one of Colored Glass Sect's ancient records that about 2,000 years ago, there was another sect on Shadowed Star that rivaled Heaven Battling Union and Thunder Typhoon sect in fame and strength called the Ancient Yang sect. At that time, a young disciple that had come out from Star Emperor Mountain to wander the world accidentally obtained a rare and precious treasure. Some people from the Ancient Yang sect learned about this and laid an ambush for him, killed him, and stole that treasure. 1 month later, the Ancient Yang sect was exterminated and razed to the ground in a single night. Yang Kai paled. There was no need to even think about it to know that the Ancient Yang sect was destroyed by Star Emperor sect. Being able to wipe out an existence equal in strength to Heaven Battling Union or Thunder Typhoon sect overnight fully explained how much power the Star Emperor sect commanded. Dai Yuan smiled lightly as she brushed her hair back and said, but this is something that happened more than 2,000 years ago. No one knows whether it is true or false. The elders from the sect also consider this matter a taboo and never mention it and forbid anyone from asking about it. However, there is a place on Shadowed Star called Grand Hidden Valley where not even grass grows for a 1,000-kilometer radius. It is a barren wasteland filled with thick yin qi. Supposedly, though, it was the original location of the Ancient Yang sect. Many cultivators enter Grand Hidden Valley in search of opportunities as there are rumors about the Ancient Yang sect having hidden stores containing all their rare and precious treasures along with astonishing wealth. But so far no one has been able to find such riches. Instead, many people have died trying. Have you been? Yang Kai asked Dai Yuan with a smile. Although she used words like rumor and hearsay, Yang Kai could hear from her tone that she was certain these rumors were true, so it was quite likely she had been to see this Grand Hidden Valley for herself. Naturally, I have been there. Dai Yuan nodded gently. But I didn't have any gains. Instead, I was invaded by a strange chill, and only after returning to Colored Glass Sect and taking up some time could I purge the yin qi from my body. If Junior Brother Yang is interested, you should see it for yourself. Just be careful if you do. Good. If there is a chance. Yang Kai nodded carelessly, but he wasn't truly planning on going. Even if there were any hidden stores in the Ancient Yang sect, after 2,000 years, he didn't believe they hadn't been found. Running over now to search for treasure would be like trying to draw water with a bamboo basket. Yang Kai wasn't willing to waste time and energy on such a pointless pursuit. Hee. Dai Yuan also saw that Yang Kai was just being perfunctory and didn't bother continuing to talk about this topic, instead saying, those who come out from Star Emperor sect are generally not noticed. But this time things are different thanks to the flowing flame sand field having opened. Before coming here, my master told me to be careful about cultivators who are all alone and have unfamiliar faces, because they might just be disciples from Star Emperor sect. To be honest, when I first met Junior Brother Yang, I thought you were from Star Emperor sect. Yang Kai was stunned, not having expected that she would have such a misunderstanding. However, it was quite reasonable. Yang Kai wasn't from Shadowed Star, so naturally not many knew his face. And since he was able to reach the third layer with just a first-order Saint King cultivation, he definitely possessed some powerful methods, so Dai Yuan having such a misunderstanding was all but inevitable. Considering this, Yang Kai suddenly realized that at that time Meng Hongliang from Imperial City Sect and Huang Shi from Extreme Path Sect had probably misunderstood his identity after he showed off some of his means. They obviously suspected that he was from Star Emperor Mountain, which caused Meng Hongliang to become cautious about acting lest innocents be hurt. Dai Yuan also had a similar misunderstanding, but after learning that Yang Kai and Wei Guchang had ties, she immediately denied this conjecture, because Star Emperor Sect's people would never try to associate with others. After arriving here, when she saw this stern-faced man, she instantly knew that he was the real disciple from Star Emperor Sect. After talking for a while with nothing else to discuss, both closed their eyes and continued to meditate. The glowing red sun continued rising higher and higher until it seemingly reached the top of the sky. The fruit scent in the air became more and more intense over time, and the perceptions and insights which could be obtained from inhaling it also became more and more profound, causing each of the cultivators here to be delighted. Suddenly, the earth seemed to shake, and a shocking energy fluctuation appeared. Such a change naturally caused all the cultivators present to pale, wake from their deep meditation, and stare towards the mountain valley in shock. A layer of red mist suddenly began filling the mountain valley, one that seemed to contain a terrifying power. The appearance of this red mist was completely unexpected, as there were no signs of it a moment ago. But when the cultivators looked, it had already welled up and within the blink of an eye had filled the entire mountain valley. Immediately, an astonishing wave of heat burst forth, creating a hot wind which swept across every corner of the flowing flame sand field's third layer. This kind of scene had been experienced by everyone already, so witnessing it again at this moment, their anxiety quickly faded, as they knew that although this wave of heat looked terrifying, it didn't bring any harm with it. Sure enough, when the hot wind swept across everyone's bodies and spread farther away, no one was injured. In the very center of the mountain valley, another red sun was born, and it slowly began rising up into the sky. This red sun didn't appear very big, only about as large as a plate, but despite being able to see it with their eyes, none of the cultivators present could probe it with their divine sense. On top of that, if they stared at it for too long, they would begin to feel dizzy. A more intense fruity fragrance burst forth, causing the hearts in each cultivator's chest to pound. The second red sun had appeared. This also meant that the red candle fruit was one step closer to true maturity. The disciples from the great forces present who had learned the truth from medicine pill sects Li Yunan suddenly grew restless, and the atmosphere became filled with tension and hostility. Around the mountain valley, everyone was looking at everyone else, as if they were irreconcilable enemies they couldn't wait to rush over and kill. The cultivators from sects who still didn't know the truth about the mature red candle fruit's miraculous effects were still affected by this atmosphere. Unwilling to let go of any clues, while carefully watching other people's movements, they sent some people to forces they were friendly with to inquire about the situation. Soon, all kinds of secrets about the red candle fruit spread out, causing every cultivator present to understand what was happening and allowing the tense atmosphere to once again calm down. Since there would be a three suns grand risings phenomenon, and only 2 red suns had appeared so far, there was no need to act hastily. Let alone, before it truly matured, the red candle fruit wouldn't appear before their eyes, so even if someone wanted to try to steal it, they wouldn't be able to. After the appearance of the second red sun, there was only a brief moment of commotion around the mountain valley before everyone fell silent again and continued to absorb the fruity aroma, realize its mysteries, and enhance their own cultivation. Yang Kai also immersed himself in this scent, feeling like his comprehension of Saint Chi control had risen to another level and some vague concepts and ideas began filling his head. But although he had caught a glimpse of something, he was still unable to understand it completely. This situation was like he was itchy all over but unable to scratch himself, causing Yang Kai to become somewhat restless as he focused even more of his attention on this vague concept, wanting to take advantage of this opportunity before the red candle fruit fully matured. If he could comprehend these new insights, Yang Kai didn't doubt his combat power would increase significantly. Time passed by slowly, but just as everyone was immersed in their own meditation, an angry roar suddenly rang out. "Bastard! You dare try to secretly arrange a spirit array?" This roar awakened a lot of cultivators who were meditating and comprehending, all of them looking over towards the origin of this shout, their eyes landing on a man from Heaven Battling Union waving a huge fan angrily. This fan gave off a potent energy fluctuation and at first glance, which was obviously a high-grade artifact. The Heaven Battling Union cultivator waved the fan in his hand as he snarled angrily, summoning a dragon phantom condensed of wind from it that rushed out with a loud dragon roar and crashed towards a mountaintop a few hundred meters away where a flustered cultivator stood. Who this cultivator was or what force he came from wasn't important at the moment. What was important was that he was doing something sneakily just now. He had thought that with everyone immersed in their own meditation, it would be a good opportunity to secretly arrange a spirit array, allowing his group to gain an advantage in the struggle, which would surely erupt when the red candle fruit fully matured. How could he have known that although everyone truly was immersed in their own comprehension, there was still someone close by who were vigilantly observing the surrounding area? This man had just started to arrange his spirit array but was immediately noticed by a cultivator from Heaven Battling Union. The loud roar awakened all of the nearby cultivators and in the front of everyone's eyes, before the cultivator who tried to secretly set up a spirit array could justify himself. The huge wind dragon, composed of sharp wind blades, opened its great maw and descended upon him. This cultivator wasn't a pushover though. No one who reached the third layer was. So he swiftly raised his hand and condensed a red light which he pushed towards the approaching dragon's mouth. However, his face was still filled with horror and panic. With a bang, the strange red light exploded directly inside the belly of the wind dragon, erupting with unimaginable power. A red glow splashed around, causing the wind dragon to collapse. "You dare fight back?" Heaven Battling Union's Chu Chong Fong shouted as he rose to his feet, grinned, and grasped towards the man in the distance. An invisible force suddenly bound this cultivator, making him unable to move a muscle. The Heaven Battling Union cultivator that originally sent out the wind dragon saw this and grinned meaningfully, waving the big fan in his hand again, sending out another wind dragon, this time successfully swallowing the man who tried to set up the spirit array. A scream came out, and although this man was also a third-order Saint King, facing both Chu Chong Fong and another elite Heaven Battling Union disciple, he was unable to resist. After struggling for a moment, the countless wind blades in the dragon's body cut this man to pieces. A bloody smell rose as chunks of flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Immediately after Chu Chong Fong and his fellow sect brother killed this man, they set their sights on a nearby mountain with cold and gloomy eyes. Atop this mountain were three Saint Kings with extremely ugly faces. The one who seemed to be the leader of this group stepped forward and shouted, "Chu Chong Fong, what are you doing? Even if my Flame Shield Union disciple acted a bit out of turn, it wasn't your place to kill him. Could it be you want to stir up a dispute between Heaven Battling Union and Flame Shield Union?" "Ha. Stir up a dispute?" Chu Chong Fong sneered dismissively. "Don't try to intimidate this young master with such bold words. You're not worthy. Instead, why don't you ask everyone else here if your junior brother sneakily trying to arrange a spirit array here is acceptable or not?" Hearing this, the leader of Flame Shield Union's group swept his eyes around and quickly discovered that every cultivator present was glaring at him angrily, causing his heart to sink as he knew he had stirred up public anger. The red candle fruit was about to mature, yet someone had dared tried to set up a spirit array to try to gain an advantage. How could this be tolerated? So even if Chu Chong Fong had a bad reputation and many here did not think well of him, everyone was siding with him at this moment. To put it more simply though, everyone was simply defending their own interests. After Chu Chong Fong shouted, many cultivators on the nearby mountain tops began to condense their Saint Chi, a sign they were preparing to attack. The faces of the three remaining Flame Shield Union disciples changed greatly, and they didn't dare to say anything. They knew that they could no longer remain here and secretly hated that Chu Chong Fong had acted so ruthlessly. Their companion had only gone to arrange that spirit array after discussing it with them and obtaining all of their approval. They all felt that it was a good opportunity to arrange such an array, but after being seen through, they had immediately found themselves in a compromised position. If they didn't leave now, they would likely be targeted and killed by everyone present. Having realized this, the leader of Flame Shield Union's group nodded. "Good, Chu Chong Fong. I'll remember you. I will surely collect on the debt of killing my junior brother in the future. And all of you people helping this tyrant do evil, just know that such treatment will befall you too sooner or later. Haha. At that time, I hope you put your best into it. Let's go. Saying so, he motioned to his two other companions and they quickly left without even looking back. Seeing the other party act so decisively, Chu Changfeng was slightly surprised. But he wasn't stupid enough to chase after them, as right now wasn't a good time to leave. Him and his junior brother being able to instantly kill that man was only because they had caught him off guard. But trying to kill 3 more without any difficulties wasn't very realistic. Even if there was a gap in their strengths, 3 third-order Saint Kings weren't soft persimmon that could be casually pinched. With a sullen expression, Chu Changfeng swept his eyes around and proudly declared, "Anyone else who dares try to act in secret, do not expect this Chu to act politely. The treasure we all seek is about to born. So I hope everyone here can abide by the rules and compete fairly for it when the time comes. Otherwise, they best be prepared to face this Chu's wrath." As soon as these words came out, someone shouted, "Young Master Chu, I just saw that guy secretly try to put something out. See, he's obviously anxious now." "Who?" Chu Changfeng glared coldly as he demanded an answer from the one who spoke. It was the people from Myriad Beast Mountain. The speaker didn't show any fear and immediately pointed towards a mountaintop with 5 high-strength cultivators. The expressions of these 5 people changed dramatically as they all shot a hate-filled glare towards the person who had just spoke. But this man was clearly intent on currying favor with Chu Changfeng and didn't pay any mind to their silent threat, shouting loudly, "Although I was not able to see what it was he put out, it should be some kind of monster beast that is good at concealing itself." Heh! Everyone knows Myriad Beast Mountain is good at commanding monster beasts. So that's how it is. Chu Changfeng nodded naturally before turning to the 5 Myriad Beast Mountain disciples and coldly asking, "Do you have anything you'd like to say?" The brawny man who appeared to be this group's leader frowned and grumbled for a moment before suddenly bursting out into laughter. "Young Master Chu, verbal statements aren't guarantees. Surely you aren't going to simply take one man's word as the truth." Obviously, he was completely confident that whatever means he had used couldn't be seen through by others. Otherwise he wouldn't be acting so boldly. As long as there was no evidence, Chu Changfeng couldn't just force drive him off. With things having reached this point, everyone could see that Heaven Battling Union was only trying to expel people in advance. They couldn't just rush out and kill others for no reason in this situation and had to provide at least some kind of excuse. The Flame Shield Union disciple who had been killed just now simply got what he deserved. Who made him run out and try to arrange a spirit array under watchful eyes. Even after losing his life, he still implicated the remaining Flame Shield Union disciples, causing them to be driven away. Now, no one knew if these Myriad Beast Mountain disciples were really up to something or not, but no one was going to speak up to support them either. In this situation, the fewer people around, the better. Most people here were taking an attitude of uninvolved bystanders, allowing Chu Changfeng to show off his might however he wished, all while secretly hoping he would find a way to expel more people. The fewer people who remained here, the easier it would be to obtain the red candle fruit. Hearing what the brawny man said though, Chu Changfeng's brow wrinkled. Although he really wanted to drive away this group from Myriad Beast Mountain, without solid evidence, it wouldn't be good to act rashly. Does young Master Chu think that Heaven Battling Union is so powerful it cannot place any other force in its eyes? If so, then this High must disagree. My Myriad Beast Mountain won't be so casually bullied. As the brawny man said so, his expression suddenly became gloomy as he summoned a number of fist-sized jet black bees from inside his body. As these bees spread their wings, a dull buzzing filled the air. There were more than 30 of these bees, each one displaying a pointed stinger that seemed to shimmer with cold light. These stingers dripped a jet black liquid which was clearly extremely poisonous, causing many who saw it to shiver. In addition to Hai Xing, the other cultivators from Myriad Beast Mountain also released their own monster beasts. These monster beasts were all rare breeds, each one an 8-order monster beast that had deadly inborn killing strikes. Hovering and crawling about, these monster beasts gathered around the 5 Myriad Beast Mountain disciples, their red eyes staring around menacingly, waiting for their masters to issue an order to attack. Bitter monarch bee. After seeing these 30-plus bees, Chu Chongfeng's expression changed dramatically, a look of dread spreading across his face as he grit his teeth. Good, good, good. No wonder you dare act so boldly. It turns out you've brought so many of Myriad Beast Mountain's famed defenders. It seems Myriad Beast Mountain has invested a lot of capital for this time's flowing flame sand field expedition. The brawny man named Hai Xing grinned and said, I've shown young Master Chu something embarrassing. We Myriad Beast Mountain disciples only know how to tame and command monster beasts, so how could we enter this flowing flame sand field without some small life-saving measures? This Hai does not want things to become awkward here. If young Master Chu does not have conclusive evidence, could you stop embarrassing this Hai? This Hai would appreciate it greatly. Although these bitter monarch bees gave Hai Xing some confidence, he did not want to have a complete fallout with Chu Chongfeng here. At this time, he wanted to de-escalate the situation, giving both parties a way to back down. Making big things small and small things nothing would be for the best. Chu Chongfeng frowned deeply, wondering whether it was time to back down. With the other side possessing more than 30 bitter monarch bees, if they really came to blows, his side would definitely suffer losses. But before he could speak, pleasant laughter suddenly filled the air. If you want evidence, it's a simple matter. Just let me take a look. Following the sound of this voice, everyone's eyes turned to the mountain occupied by Colored Glass Sect where they saw Yin Sudai stand up, her soul-stirring face flashing an enchanting smile as he delicate white hand summoned out a small gray bead the size of a pigeon egg. This bead looked dull and ordinary and was obviously not something precious. But when Chu Chongfeng saw this bead, his eyes lit up and he couldn't help laughing out loud. Hai Xing, from Myriad Beast Mountain, called out in alarm. Form-revealing bead. In Sudai, you insane woman, you actually brought that thing here? Were you specifically targeting my Myriad Beast Mountain? In Sudai giggled again, her tender body gently trembling. Why would Brother Hai say such a thing? Your Myriad Beast Mountain and my Colored Glass Sect are close neighbors and live in harmony with one another like true brothers and sisters. How could I possibly be targeting you? There are many hidden spirit arrays and barriers in this flowing flame sand field. I simply brought this bead in case I encountered one. Why is Brother Hai acting so nervous? Could it be you really did something untoward you wish to conceal from everyone? Her voice was sweet and crisp, but when it reached Hai Xing's ears, it only caused him cold chills. Yin Sudai didn't wait for Hai Xing to say anything before pouring her Saint Qi into the bead, causing a light halo to blossom from it. This light seemed to have an incredible ability that made everyone exposed to it feel as if they were unable to conceal anything from it. A truly disturbing feeling. Down below in the mountain valley filled with dead trees, a meter-long centipede suddenly appeared in everyone's view. It seemed to be lurking a couple dozen meters below the ground and was wriggling unceasingly, causing anyone who saw it to feel their skin crawl. When the beam's light shone down into the mountain valley, even this creepy-looking monster beast centipede, which was perfectly hidden a moment ago, became illuminated. Seeing this, Chu Chongfeng shouted, Red Line's Iron Centipede. What else do you have to say now? Hai Xing knew that the situation had become unfavorable the moment that gray bead appeared in Yin Sudai's hands. Just now he had tried to retrieve his Red Line's Iron Centipede which he sent underground, but was ultimately too late. His face turned red as he couldn't answer Chu Chongfeng's question, instead turning a hate-filled glare towards Yin Sudai. Suddenly, the scenes became tense, as if a fight would erupt at any moment. A brilliant flash of lightning suddenly appeared, one that cut through the tense atmosphere. Looking in the direction of the sound source, Hai Xing blood cooled greatly, and he dismissed his original idea of relying on the powerful monster beasts he and his fellow disciples had brought with them to forcibly remain here. All because the one who sent out this bolt of lightning was none other than Fang Tianzhong of Thunder Typhoon Sect. The latter had slowly stood up and was now staring indifferently towards Myriad Beast Mountain. Although he didn't say anything out loud, everyone understood what he meant. Obviously, Fang Tianzhong was also very dissatisfied with others trying to sneakily gain an advantage here and had decided to ally himself with Chu Chongfeng. On top of that, Yin Su Dai had expressed her attitude, so Hai Xing understood that if he insisted on remaining here, he would have to face all three of these sex elites. Even with the monster beasts he brought, it wouldn't be enough to resist such a force. His face became gloomy. Hai Xing didn't say another word and simply heaved a deep sigh, taking back the more than 30 bitter monarch bees flying around him before leading his companions away. After the people from Flame Shield Union were expelled, the group of 5 from Myriad Beast Mountain had suffered the same fate. It really was just as the leader from Flame Shield Union had said before leaving. Neither of these two forces was weak, but they didn't dare to remain here after provoking public anger. The red candle fruit was indeed rare and precious, but in the end, they valued their lives more. Having been forced out Myriad Beast Mountain, Yin Su Dai was in the best of moods, her enchanting smile blossoming even more brilliantly than normal, tugging on the souls of the surrounding cultivators. Many male cultivators who saw this smile felt a nearly irresistible urge to rush out, embrace her, and taste her wondrous flavor. Myriad Beast Mountain and Colored Glass Sect were neighboring sects, so naturally there was some friction and even battles between them. Yin Su Dai bringing the form-revealing bead with her this time was naturally out of concern for Myriad Beast Mountain's man-monster beasts with concealment abilities. However, she hadn't expected it to play such an important role in this situation. This time, after returning and reporting to the sect, Yin Su Dai was certain she would be able to obtain praise from her master. Thinking so, she shot a glance over at Dai Yuan, but seeing the other party apparently never having opened her eyes and still immersed in her own meditation, Yin Su Dai immediately felt a bit disgruntled. Just then, Yang Kai coughed and his face went pale, as if he had suffered some kind of trauma. The mountain valley was essentially silent, with everyone starting around at their neighbors with extreme vigilance. No one even dared to speak and were even trying to breathe quietly. So when Yang Kai's muffled cough echoed, it immediately caught everyone's attention. Wei Guchang quickly asked with concern, "Brother Yang, what happened?" Yang Kai's pale complexion gradually returned to normal and he sent out a faint smile. "It's nothing. Just a small mistake in my perception, and I almost injured myself." "Oh." Wei Guchang didn't ask any more, although he felt this explanation was strange. Even when one was immersed in a deep state of comprehension, a small mistake wouldn't normally result in injuries. Not only was Wei Guchang suspicious, even Dong Shenner and Dai Yuan were puzzled, with both of them opening their eyes to take a look at him. "Brother Wei, is there something wrong on your side?" Chu Chang Feng asked coldly. He had just been riding high after showing off his strength and prestige, so suddenly being interrupted by Yang Kai's cough had made him upset. Regardless of whether this First-Order Saint King had done it intentionally or unintentionally, it still displeased Chu Chang Feng, so naturally his tone wouldn't be too good. What's more, he didn't like Yang Kai to begin with. He didn't know why, but every time he saw this kid he felt angry. This kid had often run into him, and now Chu Chang Feng was wondering just what kind of skill he possessed that allowed him to reach the 3rd layer with such a weak cultivation. "It's nothing, Brother Chu can continue what it was he was doing." Wei Guchang grinned and said meaningfully. Chu Changfeng's face sank further as he stared deeply at Wei Guchang, but he ultimately didn't try to find trouble with him. Instead, he stood tall atop his mountain and loudly proclaimed, "Flame Shield Union and Myriad Beast Mountain's people only have themselves to blame. Just as this Chu said moments ago, I hope everyone will abide by the rules. Before the red candle fruit fully matures, don't try to engage in any mischief. After the red candle fruit matures, everyone will use their own means to compete for it. Of course, this Chu believes that there are others besides those two who are trying to use underhanded means here. Heh, I'd like to give these friends a chance to leave now. If you don't and this Chu finds out later, even if you want to leave, I'm afraid you won't be able to." Hearing this, many people's complexions changed, all of them realizing they had greatly underestimated Chu Changfeng's appetite. Just now, he had expelled both the Flame Shield Union and Myriad Beast Mountain, and although he had some reasons for doing so, and everyone had stood behind him as it could loosely be interpreted as an action taken out of considered for everyone's benefit, what Chu Changfeng had just declared was clearly overdoing it a bit. This guy obviously wanted to make a clean sweep of everyone here. As a result, Many of the slightly weaker forces glanced over at the peak where Thunder Typhoon Sect was stationed, wanting to see how Fang Tianzhong reacted. Everyone knew that Fang Tianzhong and Chu Changfeng were constantly at odds with one another, and that each time they met there would inevitably be conflict. A moment ago, Fang Tianzhong and Chu Changfeng had joined forces, but that didn't mean they would do so again now. Perhaps Fang Tianzhong would oppose Chu Changfeng like normal this time, allowing them to fish in troubled waters. However, with just a glance, these people's hearts sank. Fang Tianzhong was actually sitting there with his eyes closed, completely disregarding Chu Changfeng's show of arrogance. What did this mean? It clearly meant that Fang Tianzhong had secretly reached an agreement with Chu Changfeng and was going to ignore the current situation. After realizing this, many people shook their heads and laughed bitterly. There were no eternal enemies in the world, only eternal benefits. For the red candle fruit, even Fang Tianzhong and Chu Changfeng could temporarily ally with each other. Since that was the case, how could there be room for any of them? With the situation set in stone, many smaller forces who only had 2 or 3 cultivators present retreated from their respective mountains and left. They believed that even if they persisted, Chu Changfeng would find an excuse to drive them away. So they figured they might as well depart now before they suffered any further losses. Naturally, some forces didn't pick up on Chu Changfeng's not-so-subtle message, thinking they hadn't done anything untoward, and insisted on staying. However, Chu Changfeng quickly declared that they were guilty, and without even letting them defend themselves projected his murderous intent towards them and attack, successfully expelling several more forces. He had to look for evidence when dealing with Myriad Beast Mountain because he was concerned about dealing with those bitter monarch bees. But for others, he had nothing to fear. His fist was bigger, so what he said was right. While Chu Changfeng was putting on a show, only about a dozen forces remained unconcerned, all of them simply observing the scene in front of them indifferently, showing no intention to interfere either way. All of them knew that Chu Changfeng doing this would more or less benefit them, but as long as they didn't get involved, Heaven Battling Union would bear all the notoriety. In any case, Heaven Battling Union already had so many accumulated grudges. Why would they fear having a few more? Chu Changfeng was swift and ruthless, successfully driving away at least 70% of the gather forces, turning the originally bustling mountain valley into a rather sparse scene. As for the remaining dozen forces atop their own mountain tops, it wasn't that Chu Changfeng didn't want to drive them away, but that he couldn't. These dozen or so forces weren't weak, so he didn't dare to go planting stolen goods to shift blame at will. After this uproar, the mountain valley quieted down again as the second red sun gradually approached the top of the sky. As things settled down though, Xianxia was actually staring back towards the distance, his eyes filled with cold light. At the end of his gaze was the increasingly estranged cultivator that Dai Yuan just told him was Lu Yi of Flowing Cloud Valley. Xianxia had long felt the murderous intent and hostility of this man, but he had never imagined that the other party would dare to attack him in the front of everyone's eyes. On top of that, the method he used was so ingenious that even Xianxia had barely been able to detect it. Just now, when Yin Sudai was displaying the power of the form-revealing bead, Xianxia had opened his eyes because he was curious and wanted to see what kind of special ability it possessed that could cause the brawny man from Myriad Beast Mountain to react so greatly. Unexpectedly, though, when the light from the form-revealing bead radiated, Xianxia actually saw a faint trace of abnormal energy not far away that was slowly spreading towards him. The source of this strange energy was actually from Lu Yi. This mass of spiritual energy was concealed so well that even with Xianxia's incredibly powerful divine sense, he wasn't able to notice its approach. If not for the unexpected appearance of the form-revealing bead, this attack would surely have succeeded. The moment he sensed the spiritual energy attack, Xianxia countered. What surprised him, though, was that the other party's divine sense was no weaker than his own. After the invisible collision between their two divine senses, Xianxia had actually suffered a slight loss. After this incident, Lu Yi immediately took back his divine sense and pretended he hadn't done anything while Xianxia's cough had actually attracted everyone's attention. After Chu Changfeng began expelling people, though, Lu Ye's expression became gloomy. With many other cultivators being driven away, he also chose to leave. After all, he was the only one from Flowing Cloud Valley to arrive. and since he was alone, Chu Chongfeng would surely not tolerate his presence. If he didn't leave, it would only cause problems for himself. Something is up with that guy. Yang Kai knew that if not for him fortunately obtaining the soul-warming lotus many years ago, he wouldn't have such a powerful soul. But how many soul-warming lotuses could there be in this world? Even if there was another soul-warming lotus, it was impossible for it to be in the hands of a cultivator like Lu Yi. Yet this Lu Ye's soul cultivation was truly no weaker than his own. A very strange phenomenon. Flowing Cloud Valley wasn't a very powerful force, only second class by Shadowed Star standards. It was impossible for such a sect to have a secret art which could temper one's soul so profoundly. So how was Lu Yi able to cultivate his spiritual energy to such a degree? Previously, in the stalactite cave, Yang Kai hadn't noticed anything special about this Lu Yi. He was just an ordinary third-order Saint King cultivator. Later, when everyone was soaking in the soul-cleansing divine water, Lu Yi had entered too, but he definitely did not obtain enough benefits to explain such a dramatic change. Acquiring such a powerful enemy for no apparent reason made Yang Kai feel extremely depressed, but no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't understand how he had offended the other party. Yang Kai swore to find a chance to kill Lu Yi as quickly as possible. Regardless of whether the other person was misunderstanding something or simply bore a grudge against him, having such an enemy always staring at him made Yang Kai unable to relax. After mulling over these thoughts in his mind, Yang Kai quickly made his decision. Exhaling softly, he no longer thought about Lu Yi and once again closed his eyes to continue meditating. After the second red sun rose, the fruit aroma in the air had become more intense and its efficacy had also become much stronger. All the remaining cultivators refused to waste this rare opportunity and all focused on silently meditating. Yang Kai continued immersing himself in his understanding of Saint Chi control. He knew that the red candle fruit's fragrance would not linger for long, only until it fully matured, so he didn't intend on using this short time to study the esoteric Tao of space. As long as he could comprehend how to fully control his Saint Chi in the next 2 or 3 days, this little trip would definitely be worthwhile. Yang Kai didn't know what other people chose to comprehend, but he felt his choice was for the best. When the second red sun rose to the midday position and no longer moved, the mountain valley filled with another layer of red energy. The cultivators who had witnessed this situation twice already did not panic, but that didn't mean they weren't excited, most of them barely able to maintain straight faces. The emergence of this dark red energy meant that the third red sun was about to rise, and the 3 suns grand risings phenomenon would be completed. This also meant that the red candle fruit was fully mature. Many cultivators became anxious, and this excitement prevented them from continuing to meditate and peacefully comprehend the various profound concepts they were studying. Instead, they opened their eyes and began paying even closer attention to everything in the mountain valley. The dark red energy began to converge, and the earth trembled lightly. Soon, a great burst of energy erupted. At the same time, the fruity aroma in the air became even richer. The third red sun then appeared in front of everyone's eyes and slowly began rising up into the sky. Rustling sounds echoed all around and Saint Chi fluctuations began appearing as some people seemed eager to rush into the valley. Li Yunan of Medicine Pill Sect saw this and rubbed his forehead in frustration. Unable to care about keeping up appearances, he shouted loudly, "You must not act rashly. The 3 suns grand risings is not finished, and the red candle fruit has yet to surface. No one may fight yet. Once anything interferes with the maturing of the red candle fruit, dying 10,000 times won't be enough of an apologize." He was the most knowledgeable about the red candle fruit's maturation process, so naturally, he had the responsibility to remind everyone. At the same time, Li Yunan was cursing in his heart. If he wasn't worried about these people being unable to hold back and really starting a fight, disturbing the maturing of the red candle fruit, he wouldn't have said anything. In fact, it would have been best if these people had killed each other off completely. After they all died, his medicine pill sect would be able to monopolize this heavenly spirit fruit. After listening to Li Yunan's words, many people gave him a cold glare. However, they maintained their heightened vigilance and continued to secretly condense their Saint Chi. Atop Shadow Moon Hall's hill, Wei Guchang observed the situation for a moment and concluded that there was still some time left before closing his eyes again and continuing his meditation, not displaying any outward signs of anxiety. With the passage of time, the atmosphere around the small mountain valley became tenser and tenser. By the time the third red sun had risen halfway up into the sky, many cultivators who were still meditating were finally unable to hold back and got up to pay closer attention to the movements of this red sun. Not only ordinary cultivators, but even the famous rising stars like Wei Guchang, Chu Changfeng, Fang Tianzhong, In Sudai, Tang Yong, and Chu Minghai were the same. No one could continue to maintain the same indifference as before, all of them carefully tracking the height of the red sun, while whispering quietly to the people around them, solemn and serious expressions upon their faces. Junior brother Yang is still immersed in his comprehension. Dai Yuan's eyes flashed with a look of astonishment as she glanced over at Yang Kai's still sitting figure and noticed that his Saint Qi was fluctuating fiercely. Yang Kai appearing like this clearly indicated that he had arrived at a critical juncture in his comprehension and couldn't even be bothered to pay attention to the maturing of the red candle fruit. It seems Brother Yang's harvest this time hasn't been small. Wei Guchang smiled bitterly as he felt some envy towards Yang Kai. He had also been immersed in meditation for the past day or two, but because he had been keeping track of the red candle fruit situation from time to time, he hadn't been able to comprehend anything of significance and only managed to obtain some minor insights. Although he still obtained some benefits, it was far from what Yang Kai grasped. That person is also still meditating. Dong Shenner cast his eyes onto another mountain top. On the other end of her gaze was the stern-faced man from Star Emperor sect who, just like Yang Kai, was sitting cross-legged. His look as tranquil as an ancient well with only his Saint Qi tumbling violently. Perhaps this is the gap between us and them, Wei Guchang muttered to himself. He had long been acknowledged as a great genius, Shadow Moon Hall's most dazzling star, on par with Fang Tianzhong, Chu Changfeng, and the other leaders of the younger generation. So he had never felt he was inferior to any others. However, after witnessing the various methods Yang Kai had displayed, he became acutely aware of his shortcomings. Now, in addition to Yang Kai, a disciple from Star Emperor sect had emerged. Wei Guchang inexplicably felt a sense of crisis wash over him. He knew that if he didn't work hard, the future shadowed star might not have a place for him. All around the mountain valley, dozens of cultivators were standing atop their own hills, paying attention to the third red sun. So the actions of Yang Kai and the Star Emperor sect disciple were very eye-catching. None cared much about Yang Kai. No one knew his origins. But a mere first-order Saint King couldn't enter these elites' eyes. But the stern-faced man from Star Emperor sect continuing his meditation actually allowed everyone to secretly breathe a sigh of relief, all of them hoping he would continue his comprehension until the ownership of the red candle fruit had been settled. Everyone here now truly understood the meaning of the saying, "A day felt like a year." Since the third red sun appeared, it seemed to be moving slower than a crawling turtle as it rose into the sky, making everyone wish they could rush forward and help push it up. This situation continued for a whole day until finally, the third red sun rose to the midday position and joined the other two red suns, completing the three suns grand risings phenomenon. These three red suns seemed to form some kind of resonance with each other, causing a brilliant red light to burst forth and illuminate the entire third layer of the flowing flame sand field. This bright flash blinded all the cultivators who remained in the third layer for a moment and forced them to close their eyes. A great pulse of energy was released high up in the sky in the next moment, and when the brilliant red light finally dimmed and everyone opened their eyes again, they were shocked by what they saw, because the three red suns had actually merged together to form a single giant red sun. This red sun was rapidly rotating, and each time it did, it was drawing in an unprecedented amount of energy. The surrounding world energy aura became incomparably rich and turbulent all of a sudden. All of this world energy gathered together here and was madly pouring into the red sun as if it were a bottomless pit. Atop Medicine Pill Sex Mountain, Li Yunan trembled, his eyes going wide as he stared at the scene in front of himself, unable to control his excitement. It was exactly the same as was recorded in the ancient records, with no differences whatsoever. It truly was a maturing red candle fruit. After an incense stick worth of time, the world energy in the entire third layer of the flowing flame sand field had been consumed, making the surrounding several hundred kilometers a dead zone. The giant red sun also seemed to have become more solid, hanging in the sky like a real little sun. Suddenly, it stopped rotating, going from an extremely fast motion to complete stillness. Not good. Li Yunan saw this and immediately began leaking cold sweat. Li Yunan hurriedly summoned out a shield-type artifact which he transformed into a protective barrier around the mountain occupied by Medicine Pill Sect, covering them in a solid defensive shield. The moment Li Yunana acted, the other disciples of Medicine Pill Sect also took out their defensive artifacts to protect themselves. Obviously, they had prepared beforehand for this, otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to act so swiftly. Medicine Pill Sect's actions drew the attention of all the other cultivators present, many of them wondering why they seemed to be in such a panic. Although they didn't understand everything, everyone realized the situation wasn't good. Li Yunan clearly hadn't told them something about what was about to happen, and whatever was about to occur was clearly dangerous. Why else would Medicine Pill Sect suddenly behave this way? There was no need to remind anyone, as all the cultivators who saw Li Yunan's actions also began summoning their defensive artifacts. Atop Shadow Moon Hall's hill, Wei Guchang snorted coldly before pushing his Saint Chi. A black light curtain immediately covered the hill, one that seemed to have streaks of red lightning flashing across its surface. Dong Xian'er also took out a token-like object and poured her Saint Chi into it, transforming it into a stream of light that circled their group. Dai Yuan summoned her cloth-like artifact once more and shrouded the hill in a protective pink cloud. The only one who didn't move was Yang Kai, as he seemed to still be deeply immersed in his own comprehension. He didn't need to take any action though, as Wei Guchang and the others were there to guard him. The disciple from Star Emperor Sect didn't have such luxury though. He had been alone on his mountain top from the start, so after he noticed the strange behavior of everyone around him, he immediately opened his eyes and stared up indifferently towards the red sun in the sky. At that moment, thousands of crimson light beams shot out from the red sun in all directions. These crimson light beams were powerful and extremely fast, in the blink of an eye arriving in front of everyone and battering their defenses with a seemingly endless barrage. Everyone immediately understood why the people from Medicine Pill Sect had assumed a strong defensive stance. As for the stern-faced man from Star Emperor Sect's expression became even more solemn as he witnessed this outburst and swiftly punched forward. His fist seemed to contain some kind of profound principle that shook the heavens and earth, intercepting and destroying all the red light beams which were approaching him. Seeing this, Wei Guchang, who had secretly been paying attention to this man, couldn't help paling slightly. Although this punch had seemed calm and relaxed, anyone who witnessed it could tell just how tyrannical this Star Emperor Sect disciple's strength was. The tens of thousands of crimson light beams ended as quickly as they began, all of them disappearing in a flash. Because everyone had made some preparations beforehand, all but a few who hadn't taken action swiftly enough were safe and sound. Seeing this, Li Yunan couldn't help showing a look of disappointment, knowing that his actions just now were a bit too overt and had caused everyone else to become vigilant as well. If he had been a bit more discreet, the number of injured wouldn't be limited to those few people. But soon, Li Yunan laughed bitterly, because all the cultivators present were currently glaring at him, apparently blaming him for not explaining the situation clearly and trying to take advantage of this situation to plot against them. It was a truly sinister act. Li Yunan paid them no mind though. He had already explained all sorts of things about the red candle fruit's maturation process, including the three suns grand risings phenomenon, so concealing some things to benefit himself was only natural. He believed that these people wouldn't be stupid enough to condemn him for such a trivial matter. Sure enough, everyone just glared at him and said nothing more. In fact, no one had any time to question him because after the tens of thousands of crimson light beams faded, the great red sun high up in the sky suddenly crashed down towards the mountain valley. In just 10 short breaths, the red sun fell somewhere in the mountain valley and it disappeared without a trace. "Get ready," Dai Yuan suddenly whispered as she lifted her hand and collected her pink cloud artifact, her beautiful eyes staring fixedly towards the mountain valley below. "Should we wake up Senior Brother Yang?" Dong Xian'er nibbled her red lips as she glanced over at Yang Kai hesitantly. Yang Kai St. Chi had been in a turbulent state this whole time, so none of them had gone to disturb him for fear of interrupting his perception. But now that the red candle fruit was about to appear, Dong Xian'er didn't know if they should wake him, so he did not miss this great event. Wei Guchang frowned slightly but soon shook his head. No. Brother Yang definitely knows what's going on outside. If he is willing to participate in this scramble, he will definitely act. We shouldn't bother him. Dong Xian'er nodded slightly. Wei Guchang's words had only just ended when a loud cracking sound suddenly echoed from the mountain valley, as if the earth was splitting apart. Everyone standing on the nearby hills also nearly fell as the ground beneath their feet trembled. An intense wave of red energy spread out from the cracks below the mountain valley, filling it with a brilliant light that made it impossible to see the situation inside. But faintly, at the place where the red sun just fell, something seemed to slowly be rising, showing a dark crimson light. This light was like that of a candle in the wind, seemingly on the verge of being snuffed out. But no matter how the wind howled and rain poured, it remained constant. A moment later, under the focused gazes of everyone present, this candle-like light finally surfaced. Naturally, it was a fist-sized dark red crystal-like spirit fruit which looked both delicate and delicious. Its shape was quite strange, almost like the flame of a candle, and it clear there was incredibly pure energy residing within it that seemed to be gently stirring. Red candle fruit. Seeing this, Li Yunan couldn't help but shout. Before he could even finish his words, a ribbon-like artifact shot out from one of the surrounding mountain tops. This ribbon was incredibly smart and flexible, just like a real woman's arm. It shot out tens of meters in an instant and was rapidly closing in on the heaven-defying red candle fruit. In Su Dai had acted. After waiting for several days, she finally couldn't hold back anymore and actually made the first attempt to snatch it up. Almost at the same time, a thunderbolt suddenly struck from a different location and with a crackling sound struck the ribbon artifact, shifting its aim and causing it to grasp nothing but air. In Su Dai shouted tenderly as she bit her thin red lips lightly and glared poutingly towards Fong Tianzhong, stomping her foot in anger. "Senior brother Fong." Fong Tianzhong's expression remained indifferent as he continued sending out bolts of lightning, blocking all the other attempts made by the surrounding cultivators to snatch the red candle fruit, ignoring the coquettishness cries of In Su Dai. A look of annoyance flashed across this heavens-blessed female from colored glass sect as bitterness filled her heart. But she couldn't afford to waste any more time on Fong Tianzhong and instead concentrated on manipulating her ribbon-like artifact to join the scramble. From a dozen different hills, dozens of cultivators all took action at once as they tried to seize this mature red candle fruit. At this moment, almost all of the rising stars on the shadowed star were putting forth their best methods. In an instant, the light of the martial skills and artifact filled the air with a brilliant glow, swiftly turning the mountain valley into a heated battlefield. However, no matter who it was, they were using a measure of discretion. None of them daring to damage the red candle fruit, all of them trying to avoid their battle affecting it in any way. On the one hand, they needed to stop others from robbing the red candle fruit, but on the other hand, they needed to work hard to snatch it for themselves. Each force's cultivators had seemingly divided up these roles beforehand and were now working hard to achieve their objectives. The forces with smaller numbers undoubtedly had it more difficult, as that was the case with Shadow Moon Hall. Although Dai Yuan had come here together with Wei Guchang and Dong Xian'er, she was acting alone and didn't have any intention of cooperating with them, because everyone knew that this heaven-defying fruit was not something they could ultimately possess. Even if they were to win ownership of it here, it would eventually be turned over to their sect who would then determine who it belonged to. Dai Yuan and Dong Xian'er had a very good personal relationship, but that still paled in comparison to their respective sects' interests. They didn't dare to assist one another. Not interfering with one another was the best they could do. After removing Dai Yuan, that left just Wei Guchang and Dong Xian'er to represent Shadow Moon Hall. One of them blocked while the other tried to snatch. As for the stern-faced man from Star Emperor sect, every attack he launched was filled with shocking might that astonished everyone around, forcing them to pay a significant amount of attention to him. This man had probably only left Star Emperor Mountain for the first time for life experience and did not understand the concept of the tall tree drawing the most wind. Soon, he couldn't help frowning because whenever he took action, there would be at least 10 others from all directions trying to block him while no one else received such treatment. It seemed that everyone had reached a consensus that he, above all others, must be stopped, while everyone else would compete independently using their respective means. This caused the pressure Star Emperor Sek's stern-faced disciple faced to multiply. No matter how amazing his strength was, he couldn't compete with so many elites on the scene. Seemingly becoming angry out of shame, this stern-faced man coldly snorted, stamped his foot, and sent out a shocking energy fluctuation that caused the ground all around him to tremble violently. The cultivators from the dozen or so other forces who were competing for the red candle fruit couldn't help turning their gazes towards the stern-faced man and staring in shock as they watched him slowly send out a punch which released a massive beam of energy. Not good. Stop him, he's gone mad. Liu Nan yelled again in horror, his clothes instantly becoming drenched in sweat as his face paled. This stern-faced man's punch was actually directed straight towards the red candle fruit. If such an attack were to really hit it, this supreme spirit fruit would be smashed into dust and instantly vanish. How could Liu Nan not panic? As he spoke, he sent out a storm of fists to try to block this Star Emperor sect disciple's attack. The others present didn't need him to remind them and took swift action. Hong hong hong. Violent explosions rang out as the huge energy column was greatly weakened by the various attacks it suffered. But what was more astonishing was the fact that it had not been destroyed, and it soon reached the red candle fruit. With a look of despair upon his face, Liu Nan nearly collapsed to the ground. Thinking the red candle fruit was about to be destroyed felt as if a blade was being pierced through his heart. Although the power of the energy beam had been significantly weakened, it had still not been completely dispersed, and under everyone's horrified gaze, it struck the red candle fruit, making everyone feel as if they were the ones being hit. Xiao, the red candle fruit, which has not been affected by the fighting so far, under the impact of this energy blast, flew straight out of the mountain valley. To everyone's surprise, this seemingly fragile, thin, and soft spirit fruit was completely unscathed by this blow. Everyone was overjoyed and immediately used their movement skills to rush out of the mountain valley, signaling the start of an even more dangerous battle. Just now, as the red candle fruit sat in the mountain valley and red energy filled the air, everyone had stood atop their individual mountains while trying to snatch it. There had not been any direct confrontation yet, but now that the red candle fruit had left the mountain valley, the situation had become far more chaotic with all the elite disciples from the various sects struggling against one another. Atop Shadow Moon Hall's hill, Wei Guchang glanced over at Yang Kai and saw that he still showed no signs of opening his eyes, causing him to feel somewhat distressed. While wondering if he should let Dong Shinner stay here and protect Yang Kai, the latter suddenly said, "You three go. Don't worry about me." Hearing this, Wei Guchang smiled happily and nodded before rushing off together with Dong Shinner and Dai Yuan. As long as Yang Kai wasn't completely immersed in his meditation, there was no need to worry that he would suffer a sneak attack. After Wei Guchang and the others left, Yang Kai opened his eyes happily, a brilliant and joyful light flashing across their depths. He had made clear the vague thoughts he was contemplating at the last moment before the red candle fruit matured. Although he felt that his control over St. Chi had not risen to a new level, now was not an appropriate time to verify his gains. Casting his eyes a few hundred meters away, even Yang Kai, who had experienced many great storms, couldn't help furrowing his brow at the scene he saw. Several dozen third-order St. King elite cultivators were desperately unleashing their martial skills and pushing their artifacts as they fought in groups of 3 to 5 against one another. All of them acted ruthlessly, without the slightest hint of mercy. Although the scene was extremely hot, every force had at least 1 or 2 people paying attention to the situation of the red candle fruit. What was strange was that since the red candle fruit had been blasted away from the mountain valley by the Star Emperor sect disciple, it hadn't fallen to the ground. Whenever it seemed it was about to fall into the hands of a certain cultivator, there would always be some subtle energy fluctuations that swept it aside, allowing it to continue flying through the air. The performance of the stern-faced man from Star Emperor sect was particularly eye-catching in this scuffle. Fang Tianzhong, Wei Guchang, and Chu Changfeng had formed a kind of temporary alliance and were cooperating to block him from seizing the red candle fruit. But this stern-faced man was able to display incredible power, confronting 3 people on his own without falling into a disadvantage. Although this wasn't quite a life-or-death fight, it was still amazing to be able to fight against these 3 rising stars all by himself. Yang Kai watched secretly and immediately realized that this man who came from Star Emperor sect was not affable. After observing the situation for a moment, Yang Kai knew that if nothing unexpected happened, the red candle fruit's ownership wouldn't be decided for some time. At least a few people would first need to die before everyone really put forward their best, after which there was a chance for things to be decided. But who would be the ultimate winner was impossible to tell. Yang Kai wasn't uninterested in the red candle fruit. After all, this was an Origin King grade high-rank spirit fruit, something even he had never encountered before. Using it in alchemy would definitely be of great benefit to the growth of his alchemy skills, and after being refined into a pill, it really might be able to help a third-order Origin returning realm cultivator break through to the Origin King realm. Such a spirit fruit in the hands of a suitable master may be able to create 4 or 5 Origin Kings. Unfortunately, this battle was simply too chaotic. Yang Kai estimated that even if he were to participate, he didn't have more than a 1 in 10 chance of obtaining the red candle fruit. For such uncertain benefits, it simply wasn't worth acting. What's more, this thing was currently a hot potato that only one of a few true elites could take away. If the red candle fruit fell into his hands, someone without a stronger backer, it would only lead to disaster. Therefore, he had already made up his mind not to fight for the red candle fruit. It was because of this that he had focused all of his attention on his comprehension just now. However, although he didn't intend to join the competition for the red candle fruit, it didn't mean Yang Kai had no other plans. Glancing down at the mountain valley filled with red energy, Yang Kai grinned, and while everyone's attention was attracted by the red candle fruit, silently slipped into the cloud of red mist and disappeared. The red candle fruit was indeed rare and precious, but the plant which gave birth to it was also a great treasure. The root of the red candle fruit was called the red candle stalk, and if it was planted in a place with rich world energy, it could absorb that aura and produce a spirit fruit similar to the red candle fruit. Of course, the fruit produced this way wasn't a genuine red candle fruit and did not possess the magical ability to help an Origin returning realm cultivator break through to the Origin King realm, but it did have the ability to help a cultivator temper their body. What Yang Kai was after was precisely this ability. The benefits of a more powerful physique were self-evident. Yang Kai's body was countless times stronger than that of an average cultivator in the same realm. Even ordinary low-ranked Origin realm cultivators couldn't compare with him in terms of pure physical strength. With the improvement of his own strength, and as he encountered stronger and stronger cultivators, Yang Kai found that the strength of his physique was now somewhat hindering him. He had suffered a number of injuries in these past few days, which was enough to raise some alarm. Moreover, when tearing space, he needed a strong physical body, otherwise he wouldn't be able to resist the strain of traversing the void. If he could obtain the red candle stalk and consume the spirit fruits it produced from time to temper his body further, he could solve this issue. As long as he was given enough time, he could raise the intensity of his physique to new heights. At that time, when fighting against others and tearing space, he would become much more relaxed. He couldn't use the red candle fruit for the time being, and he believed that with his own ability, and in conjunction with everything he currently possessed, breaking through to the Origin King realm shouldn't be a problem. All that he was lacking was the accumulation of time. However, the red candle stalk was something he needed right now, so instead of participating in the competition for the red candle fruit, he focused on stealthily taking away the red candle stalk. Yang Kai plans seemed just right, but it turned out that someone else had the same idea and had acted first. When Yang Kai snuck into the mountain valley in order to search for the red candle stalk amidst this bank of red mist, he immediately discovered a blurry figure happily collecting something into his space ring. Who this person was, Yang Kai didn't know, but he was certain that what they had just taken away was the red candle stalk. Staying behind and collecting the red candle stalk at such a time indicated that person had a deep understanding of the red candle fruit. Dai Yuan was currently fighting outside, and so was Li Yunan of Medicine Pill Sect, so it was impossible for it to be one of them. The most likely candidate was one of the other medicine pill sect disciples, most likely instructed by Li Yunan long ago to remain behind in order to obtain this treasure. Just as Yang Kai found this man, he too found Yang Kai. In shock, this man pushed his Saint Chi violently, but before he could launch an attack, a loud sound rang out, and after a short, pitiful scream, the valley fell silent. As a bloody scent spread, Yang Kai's eyes narrowed, and he immediately summoned his wind and thunder wings as he soared forward towards the figure that had taken away the red candle stalk, snatched his space ring, and then swiftly withdrew. Yang Kai's actions were extremely fast, but in that brief moment of contact, he saw a creepy scene. The one who had taken away the red candle stalk was indeed a disciple of medicine pill sect. But at this moment he had an arm through his chest, one that was holding his still beating heart. Moreover, this arm was very unusual and looked extremely dry, like a piece of dead wood, and it was sucking the blood essence out of this unfortunately medicine pill sect disciple. Before Yang Kai stepped back, he clearly saw the body of this medicine pill sect disciple wither and turn into a dry corpse. There was a third person here. No matter who this third person was, any cultivator that could launch such a perfect sneak attack on a third-order Saint King and instantly kill them couldn't only be described as extraordinary. Almost as soon as he snatched the space ring, the other party's hand also touched it, but they only managed to grab empty space, causing them to call out in surprise. Pooh! The sound of something bursting echoed, and in front of Yang Kai, the body of the medicine pill sect disciple exploded, leaving nothing behind. The third person who had killed him disappeared strangely, seemingly completely blending into the surrounding environment. In this mountain valley filled with red energy, with vision that has been incredibly limited, one could barely see anything a meter in front of them. Yang Kai released his spiritual energy without hesitation, creating a web of divine sense threads all around him, without letting off a single spot. But what startled him was that this third person seemed to have truly disappeared. Even with Yang Kai's powerful divine sense, he couldn't find a single trace of the other party. However, Yang Kai knew that this man had not left. Since he had come here, he must have been after the red candle stalk, and since that was now in Yang Kai's hands, if the other party wanted it, he would certainly come to him. Suddenly, a single thread of divine sense that Yang Kai had spread out sent back some slightly inconsistent sensations. In normal times, Yang Kai would not pay this any mind, but right now it was enough to cause his hair to stand on end. Quickly turning around, Yang Kai condensed his demonic flame onto his fist and sent out a fierce punch towards the seemingly empty space. Honk! With a loud boom, the demonic flames wrapped around Yang Kai's fist struck something and were instantly scattered, sending Yang Kai flying backwards. At the same time though, in the originally empty space, a faint figure strangely appeared, and while Yang Kai was forced back, the sound of bones breaking echoed and the figure which revealed itself let out an annoyed grunt. "It's you!" Yang Kai shouted as he steadied himself, instantly recognizing the man who had just attacked him. It was Flowing Cloud Valley's Lu Yi, who had left some time ago. Yang Kai had seen Lu Yi leave the mountain valley and rapidly withdraw from this region, but it now seemed the other party had used some profound method to secretly return and had actually gone completely unnoticed by anyone. After the red candle fruit matured, Lu Yi had snuck into the mountain valley to target the red candle stalk just like Yang Kai. There was no need to even think about who had killed that medicine pill sect disciple. While Yang Kai shocked by his opponent's means, Lu Yi also seemed a little puzzled. The faint figure didn't disappear this time and instead stood within the red mist, observing Yang Kai. After a while, he said, "You're a bit strange." Yang Kai sneered, "You're also not normal." Lu Yi never thought that a first-order Saint King could survive his sneak attack, much less fight him on even terms without suffering any real harm. Yang Kai also didn't expect that this Lu Yi had such amazing concealment abilities. It was simply amazing. If not for Yang Kai's divine sense being far stronger than an ordinary cultivator's, he would definitely have been killed just like that medicine pill sect disciple. At this moment, both of them became a little wary of the other and also more determined to kill one another. "I haven't offended Flowing Cloud Valley or you, so why are you targeting me?" Yang Kai asked the question which had been plaguing him. Although he didn't fear Lu Yi, Such an enemy appearing for no apparent reason greatly confused Yang Kai. Humph! Flowing Cloud Valley indeed. Lu Yi coldly snorted, a hint of disdain apparent in his tone, only confusing Yang Kai further. But before he could ask anything, Lu Yi simply stated, "You have only yourself to blame for taking that which does not belong to you. If not for that transgression, I wouldn't mind taking you in. You're much better material than those wastes outside." Yang Kai frowned, feeling that this man's tone was higher than the heavens. Lu Yi gave him an impression fundamentally different from the one Dai Yuan previously described, as if they were two completely different people. Moreover, Yang Kai still couldn't figure out why this Lu Yi was so fixated on him. In the flowing flame sand field, Yang Kai had obtained many good things, a few of which weren't lower in value than the red candle fruit itself, some of them possibly even above it, but this man didn't even show interest in competing for the red candle fruit. Obviously, he didn't care about his heaven-defying spirit fruit. So what was it that Yang Kai possessed that would continually draw Lu Ye's attention? Regardless of what the truth was, Yang Kai didn't plan to ask anymore, because even if he did, the other party would not answer him. Now, in this misty red mountain valley, between him and Lu Yi, there could only be a battle. Chi-chi. A slight sound came from behind him, causing Yang Kai's hair to stand on end. Even though had been on full alert, with Lu Ye's nearly undetectable methods, it wasn't until the layer of demonic flame he had put up around him was impacted that Yang Kai realized he was being attacked. The moment he felt the attack, Yang Kai turned his head in the direction of the sound. However, all he could see was a fuzzy figure which had mysteriously appeared behind him, as well as a withered arm that like a sword was being stabbed towards him. Condensing his demonic flames, Yang Kai swung a profound heavenly sword towards the withered arm and shattered it along with the blurry figure it was attached to, his sword collapsing in the process. "Your Saint Chi is quite interesting. Such power is something really unimaginable for a mere Saint King." Lu Ye's voice came from behind again, with a hint of mockery. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed, and turning around again, he saw the same blurry figure from before, as if it hadn't even moved, and the withered arm which had struck him a moment ago was a completely different entity. What kind of skill was this? Yang Kai was shocked and didn't dare act carelessly. Just as he was about to take the initiative to launch an attack, in all directions, there suddenly appeared multiple blurry figures. These figures were all identical, as if they had been made from the same mold, and in the next instant, all of them sent out powerful attacks towards Yang Kai. Each attack felt like a real martial skill, none of them seeming like illusions. Yang Kai's face changed slightly, and he immediately summoned his purple shield to protect himself while at the same time condensing another demonic flame sword and chopping towards his surroundings. Chi-chi-chi. Wherever Yang Kai's sword waves passed, the blurry figures would disappear together with their attacks. But the number of these figures didn't seem to decrease at all as they struck towards him in an endless stream. This made Yang Kai frustrated. He had never encountered such a strange method, and he wasn't able to find a way to break through it immediately. But after fighting for a while, Yang Kai noticed something was wrong. Each of the vague figures possessed Lu Ye's aura but nothing else, as if they were shadows of his body or some type of indistinct clone. Cutting down several approaching figures, Yang Kai opened up a gap in this endless wave of attacks, bit his finger, and quickly smeared golden blood over his left eye. The demon eye of annihilation appeared, and an invisible majesty spread out. Yang Kai's vision in his left eye was no longer hazy, and in an instant, he was able to see everything within the red mist, the dim surroundings becoming crystal clear at this moment. These figures were indeed Lu Yi, there was no doubt about it. But under the demon eye of annihilation's ability to see through all illusions, these vague figures all gave off a slight red glow. Only one figure in the distance remained unchanged. Yang Kai's eyes instantly fixed at this particular figure. If he wasn't mistaken, this was Lu Ye's true body, while all the others were some kind of illusion or fabrication. Oh, some kind of innate ability? A look of surprise appeared on Lu Ye's face as he stared towards Yang Kai's left eye as if he had discovered something extraordinary. A look of greed soon appearing filling his expression. Based on his knowledge and experience, it was easy for him to see that the change in Yang Kai's left eye wasn't due to some kind of secret art or technique. but rather an inborn ability. Such innate divine abilities were incredibly rare, and even he had never possessed one. The golden pupil gave off a kind of awe-inspiring air that drew one's consciousness in, and after staring into it for but a moment, Lu Yi felt that his soul and knowledge sea were becoming turbulent, like they were about to be drawn out from his very body. Startled, he quickly steadied his mind and suppressed the roiling of his knowledge sea. While Lu Yez felt a sense of fright from this experience, his greed also became stronger. If he could seize Yang Kai's left eye, it would increase his own strength greatly. He really hadn't expected that this first-order Saint King could bring him so many surprises. This boy's eye seemed to be able to see through all forms of illusion, so there was no way for him to implement his original plan. After considering the situation for a moment, Lu Yi dismissed his remaining shadows and transformed them into a series of streams that flowed back into his body. The next moment, a potent spiritual energy wave burst from Lu Ye's side, turning into a sharp thorn and piercing directly towards Yang Kai's knowledge sea. Yang Kai felt a sharp pain the moment his knowledge sea's defenses were about to be broken and didn't dare to have any reservations, fully pushing his spiritual energy to block his opponent's attack. Although he managed to defend himself, Yang Kai still felt a little dizzy, and it was obviously that his soul had suffered some small wounds. It seemed that earlier, when the red candle fruit was maturing, Lu Yi had not used his full strength to attack him. On top of that, this guy seemed to have even stronger soul cultivation than Yang Kai. Feeling slightly dizzy, Yang Kai knew that his situation had become precarious and quickly slashed out with his sword, sending out a wave of demonic flames to break through the red mist and cut through the surrounding air. Within the red mist, a thick evil chi and malevolent aura rumbled as Lu Yi let out a wicked laughter that echoed in Yang Kai's ears. He wanted to take advantage of Yang Kai's momentary opening to capture him, after which he could slowly dig up all of his secrets. But obviously, Yang Kai wasn't going to just sit back and let himself get caught. So he immediately transformed his demonic flames into a large number of black light beams and fired them off like arrows from a bow towards a certain spot in the red mist. Yuan Control Mastery. Lu Ye's face sank as he called out in shock. Yang Kai's performance had continuously amazed him. This kid's natural talent and aptitude were nothing short of astonishing. He possessed innate abilities, Saint Chi, and spiritual energy far more powerful than those of ordinary people. Now it seemed he was even able to exhibit Yuan Control Mastery, which greatly shocked Lu Yi. Although Yang Kai's Yuan Control Mastery seemed a bit rough, as if he had only just comprehended it, this still wasn't a skill that Saint Kings should be able to master. Only when one's cultivation reached the origin returning realm and he or she began to understand would they possibly be able to achieve Yuan Control Mastery. Even then, origin realm cultivators who could transform and manipulate their Saint Chi through Yuan Control Mastery were extremely rare, each one of them a shocking talent that held unlimited potential. The so-called Yuan Control Mastery Lu Yi spoke of was the result of Yang Kai's painstaking meditation these past few days. Previously, his use of Saint Chi was based on martial skills he had learned or simply by using his Saint Chi as a blunt instrument, but whether he was able to hit or damage his opponent like this would greatly depend on how his target reacted and how strong their defensive abilities were. However, in the days before the red candle fruit matured, Yang Kai was able to reach a new level of control over his Saint Chi, one that required not only a deep understanding of Saint Chi but also a powerful enough soul to mold it. Without meeting both these criteria, Yuan Control Mastery would be nothing but a dream. Superb divine sense strength, which was one of the foundations of Yuan Control Mastery, was naturally not something difficult for Yang Kai. In this fight against Lu Yi, Yang Kai also had the intention to experiment with what he had comprehended these past few days, and the results had really given him a pleasant surprise. The black fireballs had transformed into sharp arrows under Yang Kai's control and pierced straight through the red mist covering the mountain valley, breaking it apart and allowing the thick malevolent aura in his surroundings disperse, reducing the pressure he felt greatly. Yang Kai grinned as the sound of wind and thunder behind him whirled up, and before Lu Yi could react, Yang Kai charged in front of him and chopped down with his demonic flame sword. Lu Yi had already witnessed the terrifying power of these demonic flames, and although he was confident he wouldn't be directly burned to death by them, he still thought it best to avoid contact with them as much as possible. His strange, wicked laughter came to an abrupt halt as he swiftly withdrew. At the same time, he formed a series of strange hand signs and condensed a giant red palm above his head that he smashed down towards Yang Kai. Lu Yi could also use Yuan control mastery, and it was apparent that his proficiency with it wasn't inferior to that of Yang Kai, who had just realized this divine ability, perhaps even above it. The moment the red palm appeared, it was as if the surrounding space had been blocked, making it difficult to breathe and stiffening Yang Kai's movements significantly. Yang Kai grunted as he madly pushed the Saint Chi in his body, breaking free of this suppression and sending out a palm of his own. Another giant hand appeared in the sky. The Nine Heavens Divine Skills heaven-covering hand met Lu Ye's red palm head-on, causing an explosion that made the entire mountain valley tremble. Taking this opportunity, Yang Kai advanced even further, waving his demonic flame long sword through the air, as he used his Yuan control mastery to transform more of his demonic flame into various attacks that flew towards Lu Yi. Yang Kai realized that Lu Yi had stronger soul cultivation than him, but his strength was still limited. As long as Yang Kai remained alert enough, Lu Ye's divine sense wouldn't pose too much of a threat. On top of that, Lu Ye's Saint Chi wasn't as pure or vigorous as Yang Kai's. While the difference in their physical strengths was even further apart, that was why Yang Kai chose to enter a melee, as this was his biggest advantage. The other reason Yang Kai chose this course of action was in order to prevent Lu Yi from escaping. Yang Kai poured his Saint Chi into his purple shield, causing it to emit a brown glow, and a moment later create a large-scale sandstorm that engulfed the entire mountain valley. This was one of the hidden powers of his purple shield, one that Yang Kai was using for the first time. The purple shield was refined from the carapace of the scarlet-tailed purple armored scorpion, and Yang Yan had incorporated the Ninth Order Monster Beast's monster core into it, allowing it to use some of the scarlet-tailed purple armored scorpion's own divine abilities from before it died. This sandstorm was an ability that came with this shield. Sand and dust whirled about as Yang Kai's figure drifted from place to place in an impossible-to-read pattern. Submerged in this violent sandstorm, Lu Yi had to divert part of his focus to resist this strange attack, finding the position of host and guest suddenly reversed by Yang Kai and slowly being suppressed. Lu Yi quickly became annoyed. He had never expected that, after finally regaining his freedom from a few tens of thousands of years of imprisonment, the first enemy he bumped into would be so strange and powerful, making it impossible for him easily kill. This made him feel like he had lost a great deal of face and made him become angry out of shame. The two of them were just about equally proficient in Yuan control mastery as well. Yang Kai's Yuan control mastery was rough, because he had only just comprehended it, while Lu Ye's was unsteady because the Saint Chi in this current body wasn't dense and pure enough. On top of that, in a frontal clash, his Saint Chi was falling greatly behind Yang Kai's demonic flame in terms of destructive power. Inferior in terms of Saint Chi, unable to suppress him in terms of spiritual energy, and with a weaker physical body, Lu Yi quickly found himself on the losing end of this battle. Yang Kai didn't say a word as he was focusing entirely on suppressing his opponent. The demonic flame sword in his hand caused some damage to Lu Yi from time to time, but what made Yang Kai depressed was that even his seemingly unstoppable demonic flame was unable to contaminate his opponent. A strange flash of blue light Yang Kai couldn't identify would appear from Lu Ye's body and actually extinguish the demonic flames which would normally have burnt him, reducing the damage Yang Kai could deal this way to mere flesh wounds. Since he had made up his mind to kill this inexplicable enemy though, Yang Kai was naturally not planning to hold back. He hadn't used his space force yet though. His self-created space blade wasn't perfected yet, so the best time to use it would be when he found a decisive opening. If he failed to hit his opponent and as a result caused Lu Yi to become more vigilant, it would severely reduce this trump card's effectiveness. Yang Kai was constantly searching for a suitable opportunity to surprise Lu Yi, thinking as long as he could successfully hit him with his space blade, he could seriously injure him if not kill him outright. Unsurprisingly though, Yang Kai so thoroughly suppressing him aroused great anger from Lu Yi, and after suffering a series of injuries, he roared, "Brat, you court death!" Saying so, Lu Yi suddenly spat out a puff of black blood. The smell of this blood was extremely pungent, making one want to vomit, but the power it contained was even more terrifying. Obviously, it was Lu Ye's blood essence. This blood essence transformed into a blood mist before rapidly condensing into a strange short rod in Lu Ye's hand. This short rod was only about 2 palms in length and could be easily gripped within one's hand. It looked completely ordinary and inconspicuous. But when it appeared, Yang Kai's heart clenched and an inexplicable sense of crisis well up inside him. Yang Kai rarely felt this way, but whenever he did, it meant that he was facing incredible danger. A fierce grin appeared on Lu Ye's face as he madly poured his Saint Qi into this black short rod, and a moment later, the entire world inexplicably went dark. It was as if all the surrounding light was being absorbed by this short rod, making it impossible for Yang Kai to see anything around him and even rendering his demon eye of annihilation useless. The sandstorm which had been filling the mountain valley was suddenly interrupted, the dust drifting down the ground as all the howling winds abruptly came to a stop. Yang Kai's face changed greatly. At this moment, he realized that he could barely circulate the Saint Qi in his body regardless of how hard he pushed it. It was also impossible for him to draw out spiritual energy from his knowledge sea, as if it had been sealed off somehow. In the darkness, Yang Kai instinctually sensed something approaching him, a kind of death aura that could extinguish anything it touched, sending chills down his spine. It can't be resisted. It can't be blocked. At this moment, all kinds of thoughts flashed across Yang Kai's mind, and he quickly determined that neither his Saint Qi nor spiritual energy could block this strange attack. Not that he could access either of those under his currently suppressed state. He also couldn't escape as most of his strength was being cut off, much less tear space. Swiftly making a decision, Yang Kai condensed a drop of golden blood at his fingertip, sending out a sensational wave of vitality into the surroundings. He then shot out this drop of golden blood towards the deepest part of the darkness. When the golden blood's surging vitality and black death aura collided with one another, there was surprisingly not a single sound, only an explosion of golden and black light which filled the mountain valley. For a time, these two forces actually perfectly counterbalanced one another. How is that possible? Lu Ye's face finally changed. Although he had been suppressed by Yang Kai previously, he wasn't panicked because he had not yet gone all out. But now that he had used such a powerful artifact with complete determination to kill Yang Kai, he firmly believed that this boy wouldn't be able to resist. However, to his great surprise, when he sent out this trump card, the scene of hashed meat and splatter blood did not appear, and instead, an astonishing explosion of vitality had come out and managed to block his attack. This boy has to be killed as soon as possible. Such thoughts flashed through Lu Ye's mind as his expression became fierce. With just a first-order Saint King realm cultivation, this boy could fight evenly with him. If he were to be allowed to truly mature, wouldn't he become an invincible existence? Lu Ye's tens of thousands of years of experience had taught him that such dangers must absolutely be snuffed out while in the cradle. At this moment, he regarded Yang Kai as a thorn in his side, one that needed to be eliminated as quickly as possible. A ruthless light flashed across Lu Ye's eyes as he spat out another mouthful of blood essence, causing the black light which was competing against the golden radiance to rapidly grow in intensity. The golden light was quickly suppressed and was on the verge of collapsing, after which the death aura would swiftly engulf Yang Kai. In response, Yang Kai flicked his wrist and set out another drop of golden blood, causing the golden light of vitality to instantly grow strong again and pierce through the darkness. Lu Yi let out a cry of shock as the dark shroud he had condensed was torn apart and the light of day reappeared. In the mountain valley, both Yang Kai and Lu Yi stood in place, but at this moment Lu Ye's body was shivering and his face was extremely pale, seemingly having suffered serious injuries to his foundation. On the other hand, although Yang Kai's expression was extremely ugly, it wasn't hard to see that he was both unharmed and full of energy. Through the red mist, Yang Kai glared at Lu Yi with eyes as cold as an ancient snow-capped mountain. Lu Yi couldn't help feeling startled. A jet-black blade-like attack suddenly flew towards him, and before Lu Yi could react, it was upon him. Lu Yi panicked and hurriedly twisted his body to avoid his vitals from being hit. But a moment later, a slight stinging sensation came from his left arm. Turning his head to look, Lu Ye's soul nearly leapt out of his body as he found that one of his arms had actually been cut off by the attack just now. What kind of attack was that? Why hadn't he noticed it sooner? It didn't seem to ripple with any kind of aura at all, so why was it so powerful? What frightened Lu Ye even more though was that the wound on his arm and his fallen severed limb obviously didn't match up. A sliver was missing, which made it impossible to simply reattach his arm. Lu Ye couldn't understand what had happened. While Lu Ye was in this state of panic, Yang Kai's murderous intent soared, and he was clearly preparing to take advantage of this opportunity to settle things once and for all. But before he could act, Lu Ye's figure flickered, transformed into a red light, and quickly vanished. Yang Kai didn't know what kind of secret technique Lu Ye used, but by the time he found him again with his divine sense, this mysterious enemy was already 5 kilometers away. In the flame sand field, where flying was impossible, to traverse 5 kilometers in an instant was incredible. Whatever secret technique Lu Ye used, it was extremely profound, and apparently wasn't exhausted yet as his aura quickly traversed another 3 kilometers. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling shocked by the seemingly endless methods Lu Ye displayed, while a sense of dread also filled his heart. He even made use of his space blade but still couldn't cut down this enemy, allowing him to escape. Moreover, Yang Kai didn't know what kind of artifact that strange black rod was, but just a casual wave of it had forced him to use 2 drops of golden blood to resist. Origin-grade artifacts didn't have such power, so the only explanation was that the short black rod Lu Ye used was an Origin King-grade artifact. Did Flowing Cloud Valley have an Origin King-grade artifact? And how could it possibly have been carried by Lu Ye? Although Yang Kai didn't know why Flowing Cloud Valley would make such a decision, he had already made up his mind that he needed to kill Lu Ye while the latter was weakened. If he waited for Lu Ye to recover, trying to kill him would only become more difficult. With this in mind, Yang Kai was about to use his wind and thunder wings to pursue Lu Ye when countless yells suddenly reached his ears, each one of them seemingly containing shock and panic. Naturally, these voices were from the elite disciples who were vying for the red candle fruit. Chu Chongfeng's voice was filled with wrath, while Fang Tianzhong was shouting for someone or something to stop. Wei Guchang was calling out in alarm, while In Su Dai's sweet voice was filled with shock. Apparently, some kind of serious accident had happened. Immediately after that, Yang Kai heard a small bang, as if something had broken apart, and a red light actually shot straight from the battlefield towards the spot in the mountain valley where he was standing. Yang Kai didn't think much about it and simply reached out to grab whatever it was that was flying towards him, because he felt this red streak of light was full of energy but not some kind of attack. Instantly, Yang Kai felt warmth in his hand and a strong fruity fragrance lingered about his nostrils. Yang Kai frowned and carefully observed the object he grasped, exclaiming in the next moment, "Red candle fruit?" He hadn't expected that, after giving up any idea of competing for the red candle fruit, this heaven-defying spirit fruit that everyone else was fighting over would simply fall from the sky into his hand. Of course, the red candle fruit in his hand wasn't whole and looked as if it had been cut by some kind of weapon. Yang Kai was currently holding about 1/6 of the entire red candle fruit. The tender flesh was exposed to the air and the rich fruity aroma was continuously wafting from it, causing Yang Kai to freeze in place for a while. A moment later, though, Yang Kai returned to his senses and quickly released his divine sense to track the movements of the others nearby. But after a quick check, he let out a sigh of relief. He found that these elite disciples were still fighting over the red candle fruit at this moment, though they weren't trying to obtain the complete spirit fruit but the scattered pieces of it. "You dare?" Chu Chongfeng roared angrily, but before he could finish what he was trying to say, he was struck by an attack and closed his mouth. Immediately after, the stern-faced man from Star Emperor Sect withdrew from the battle and, in front of everyone's angry gazes, calmly departed, disappearing soon after. No one even thought of trying to make him stay. On the one hand, there were still other pieces of the red candle fruit which had not been divided up, and on the other hand, this person was simply too strong, not someone one or two of them could defeat. Now that things had reached this point, who would try to take on such a thankless job? Everyone currently had their eyes set on the cut-up pieces of fruit, and so another chaotic scramble began. Seeing this scene, Yang Kai's heart relaxed. Seeing the red candle fruit's medicinal efficacy quickly leaking, though, Xianxia once again felt aggrieved and began rummaging through his space ring. This heaven-defying spirit fruit couldn't be stored in an ordinary jade box. If one wanted to truly maintain its medicinal effects, they needed to use a wooden box. Fortunately, Xianxia's space ring had some good wood attribute materials and he soon found a piece of azure spirit wood. Using his Saint Chi, Xianxia fashioned a simple wooden box and then placed the piece of red candle fruit inside it, allowing him to finally breathe a sigh of relief. If he had known that this would happen, he would have prepared some good quality wooden boxes in advance so he wouldn't have been so flustered. Although the wooden box made from azure spirit wood was decent, if the piece of red candle fruit was left in it for too long, its medicinal efficacies would still leak out. Xianxia needed to find some time to more permanently solve this problem. But at the moment, he didn't have time to do so and could only take some stopgap measures. Unfortunately, after such a delay, his plan to chase down Lu Yi had to be abandoned, because the other party had already escaped from the range of his divine sense, and it would not be impossible to find where he was hiding. Outside of the mountain valley, the ownerless pieces of red candle fruit were tossed about in a chaotic fight for some time before they were eventually divided up. The few who managed to obtain pieces of red candle fruit wore happy smiles, while those who didn't stamp their feet and beat their chests in indignation or sighed, constantly as dangerous light flashed across the depths of their eyes. The ones who were worst off were the 8 fresh corpses which littered the battlefield. These corpses were each extremely miserable in appearance, and it was impossible to tell just who had killed them in that tangled melee. The scene had been so chaotic just now, with all kinds of artifact attacks and martial skills being tossed about. Everyone was going all out and had no time to pay attention to the situation of others, so although some forces had suffered losses and could still see their dead comrades in front of them, unable to determine who exactly was the one at fault, no one dared take any reckless actions. Those who had suffered losses simply had to choke down their broken teeth while stifling the bitterness in their hearts. After everyone who had managed to obtain a piece of red candle fruit stuffed it into their space ring, as if by prior agreement, they simultaneously rushed over to the mountain valley. Apparently, they had seen a piece of the red candle fruit fly over to the side, and it wasn't until now that they found time to search for it. However, the red mist in the mountain valley was thick, making it basically impossible to search for anything by sight. As such, everyone began releasing their divine sense. But this soon led to one divine sense bumping into another, causing muffled snorts to ring out. Soon, everyone began limiting the range they released there over divine sense to avoid further conflict. After searching for half a day, the red mist in the mountain valley had gradually dispersed, but no one was able to find the piece of red candle fruit that had landed here, and everyone was now turning suspicious eyes towards everyone else. They all felt that apart from their own allies, everyone from every other force might have obtained the last piece of red candle fruit and was simply feigning innocence. Xianxia couldn't help cheering. He had still been thinking about how to leave the mountain valley after suddenly obtaining this piece of red candle fruit, but with the red mist steadily clearing up, it solved this problem for him. Now that everyone had come down and was searching through the valley, he could easily fish in the muddy waters. Dai Yuan glanced over at Xianxia secretly and frowned. She recalled that Xianxia was still immersed in his meditation while everyone else was vying for the red candle fruit. So if a piece of it had flown over here, he was the most likely to have obtained it. However, she didn't have any conclusive evidence and it was impossible for her to think of betraying Xianxia now. So she quickly took back her gaze and pretended as if nothing had happened. Dai Yuan wasn't the only one to have such doubts about Xianxia, but no one could determine the truth of the matter, so although some wanted to question Xianxia, knowing he was together with Wei Guchang, no one dared to make rash accusations. Ahem, everyone. Li Yunan of Medicine Pill Sect, with a bitter smile on his face, suddenly stood up, cupped his fists and called out, "Please listen to what I have to say." Everyone looked at him. The great forces which had obtained pieces of the red candle fruit wore vigilant expressions while those who hadn't were completely indifferent. However, all of them wanted to know what Li Yunan was going to say now, so the scene quickly fell silent. The red candle fruit is unlike other spirit fruits and cannot be kept in a jade box. And now that it has been cut into several pieces by that bastard, the pieces absolutely cannot be placed into ordinary jade boxes. If they are, the medicinal efficacies of these pieces will quickly leak out, and I'm afraid that before you can even leave the flowing flame sand field, these pieces will have lost all their value and turned into ordinary trash. They can't be stored in a jade box? Chu Chongfeng's face changed slightly as he quickly pulled out a jade box from his space ring. When this jade box appeared, many people suddenly showed greedy looks on their faces as they stared at Chu Chongfeng. It seemed that being the favored son of Heaven Battling Union really had good luck. In that chaotic snatching battle, Chu Chongfeng had actually managed to obtain a piece of the red candle fruit. Fang Tianzhong, Yin Su Dai, and a rough-looking brawny man also wore solemn looks as they all directed their eyes towards Liu Nan intently. If it cannot be stored inside a jade box, I assume you know what kind of vessel should be used, correct? Chu Chongfeng asked politely. Liu Nan showed a contented expression and nodded lightly. This Li naturally knows. Please enlighten us, Brother Li. Fang Tianzhong slightly cupped his fists. Liu Nan grinned meaningfully and returned the courtesy. I wouldn't dare call it enlightenment. It is only that this Li has studied alchemy since childhood and knows a little more about pharmacology than average. And although I don't mind sharing my knowledge with everyone, in the recent struggle, this Li's junior brothers were seriously injured and some nearly died. As to whose poisonous hand it was that dealt such blows, this Li has a fairly good idea, but let's not bring such things up now. As he said so, he swept his eyes around, putting on a pompous act. Everyone present knew what kind of scheme he was up to. The several elites from Medicine Pill Sect hadn't obtained anything in this competition, so Liu Nan clearly wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to gain some benefits. Otherwise, he wouldn't be making such a fuss about the injuries his junior brothers suffered. In normal times, no one would dare wound a disciple of Medicine Pill Sect, but just now, in the scramble for the red candle fruit, no one cared which sect anyone else belonged to. Besides, none of the Medicine Pill Sect disciples had actually died down there, and only some of them suffered some small wounds. What's more, 8 elite disciples had fallen during the struggle, so compared to them, the cultivators from Medicine Pill Sect's luck was already quite good. Although they scoffed in their hearts though, no one said anything at this time. Fang Tianzhong frowned slightly, but in line with his usual forthright behavior, he quickly declared, "If Brother Li is willing to inform this Fang of the proper storage method, after the flowing flame sand field closes, Thunder Typhoon Sect will pay 1,000,000 Saint Crystals as compensation." 1,000,000. Heh. Liu Nan chuckled as he turned to look at Fang Tianzhong and said, "Brother Fang thinks this piece of red candle fruit is only worth 1,000,000? If so, then this Li will take his leave. 5,000,000. Fang Tianzhong's look remained unchanged while he directly increased the price he offered by 5 times. Liu Nan's lifted foot dropped as he felt slightly tempted. This time, his Medicine Pill Sect had failed to snatch the red candle fruit. But if he could collect 5,000,000 Saint Crystals from each great force that obtained a piece of the red candle fruit, it would still be a great harvest. What's more, these cut-up pieces of red candle fruit weren't really heaven-defying treasures anymore. So at this moment, he was debating whether he should continue trying to raise the price. While he was thinking though, over on Colored Glass Sect's side, Yin Su Dai suddenly cast her beautiful eyes towards Dai Yuan, and then her red lips wriggled a few times, seemingly saying something to Dai Yuan. Dai Yuan's brow furrowed and a look of displeasure appeared on her face, but she still answered back promptly. The next moment, Yin Su Dai's coquettish face filled with a happy expression as she giggled lightly. "I wish several senior brothers good luck in your negotiations. Little sister will say goodbye first." Saying so, she quickly left together with the other elites from Colored Glass Sect. The crowd was stunned because just now, Yin Su Dai had relied on her ribbon-like artifact to snatch a piece of the red candle fruit, yet she had suddenly decided to leave without even obtaining the proper method of preserving it. But soon everyone realized what had happened. Besides Liu Nan, an elite disciple of Medicine Pill Sect, there was also Dai Yuan who was familiar with the handling of spirit herbs. It seemed that Yin Su Dai had learned some information from Dai Yuan, allowing her to leave so freely. Holding such a precious treasure, Yin Su Dai naturally didn't dare to remain in this dangerous place for long. Immediately, several people began staring at Dai Yuan with burning eyes, as they wondered how to obtain the method of preserving the red candle fruit from her. Seeing this, Li Yunan knew that if he continued to bargain, those 5 million Saint crystals would slip through his fingers. In his disgruntled mood just now, he had forgotten about the existence of Dai Yuan, and although this woman was from Colored Glass sect, due to some special reasons, she was extremely well versed in spirit herbs and alchemy, so she definitely knew how to properly store the red candle fruit. Pushing down his annoyance, Li Yunan hurriedly nodded to Fang Tianzhong. Good. 5 million. I'll take Brother Fang at his word. Fang Tianzhong gently nodded, not showing any intention of going back on his word. Li Yunan quickly sent him a few words, after which Fang Tianzhong thought for a moment before he silently led the rest of Thunder Typhoon Sect's group away. On the other side, Chu Changfeng and the brawny man hesitated for a moment before also communicating with Li Yunan, both of them soon departing with looks of satisfaction on their faces. Let's go too, Wei Guchang grinned. He had also obtained a piece of the red candle fruit. Although Shadow Moon Hall only had 2 disciples on the scene, him and Dong Shener, their luck had actually been quite good. Originally Wei Guchang didn't have any hope of obtaining anything in this struggle, but when that Star Emperor sect disciple cut apart the red candle fruit, he was actually close by and had immediately snatched a piece. The entire incident went off smoothly and simply, far easier than everyone else who had to literally kill others to obtain their pieces. It was as if the bad luck he had been carrying since entering the 3rd layer of the flowing flame sand field had suddenly disappeared. With Dai Yuan and Dong Shener sharing a close relationship, obtaining the method of preserving this piece of fruit wouldn't be an issue, so there was no need for him to bother with Li Yunan. Brother Wei, please wait a moment. Li Yunan saw that Wei Guchang intended to leave and hurriedly called out to him. What's wrong? Does Brother Li have some advice? Wei Guchang halted his steps and glanced back with a cold look on his face, secretly condensing his strength as he prepared to take action at any moment. Seeing Wei Guchang look like he was preparing for a fight, Li Yunan immediately realized that the other party had misunderstood his intentions and quickly waved his hands. Brother Wei doesn't have to be so nervous. Although this Li and Brother Wei haven't had many dealings in the past, this Li is not an underhanded person. Brother Wei should know this much. Hearing this, Wei Guchang slightly relaxed the vigilance on his face and gently nodded. Brother Li's manner. This Wei naturally knows, but, heh, this place is really not one to remain at for long. Saying so, he swept his eyes around seemingly unintentionally. All around, there were cultivators who had gained nothing in the scramble for the red candle fruit, and many of them were staring at Wei Guchang, seemingly considering whether or not to act against him. Seeing this, Li Yunan called out loudly, everyone shouldn't act hastily. If the red candle fruit was still whole, it would be worth fighting over, but now it has been cut into several pieces and Brother Wei has only obtained 1 portion. Provoking a powerful enemy for something so uncertain is not something anyone here should desire, right? Li Yunan speaking up for Wei Guchang, dispersing the surrounding danger for him, was something Wei Guchang found odd. Brother Li, I'll only ask you this. Can that piece of red candle fruit's medicinal efficacies allow an origin-returning realm master to break through to the origin king realm? A young man in a white robe frowned and asked. Atop this youth's chest was an embroidered white cloud. This was the sigil of Floating Mist Palace. Brother Tang asks a good question. Li Yunan nodded. But unfortunately, this Li cannot give a clear answer, because this red candle fruit is something this Li has only ever heard about. This is the first time I have seen it. I believe that even my sect's elders cannot give a precise answer. However, the red candle fruit by itself only provides a possibility to make an origin-returning realm master breakthrough, so now that it has been split into several parts, that possibility, I assume this Li doesn't need to explain anymore. Brother Tang should also understand. The Floating Mist Palace youth, surnamed Tang, frowned for a moment before nodding. I see. Goodbye. Having said so, he immediately left with the disciples of Floating Mist Palace. The other cultivators saw Tang Yong of Floating Mist Palace give up on seizing the red candle fruit and after sighing also chose to leave. Soon, only those from Medicine Pill Sect and Shadow Moon Hall remained in the mountain valley. Wei Guchang looked at Li Yunan with a smile. From beginning to end, he hadn't said anything, but his expression said enough. He didn't believe that Li Yunan would help him for no reason. He definitely had some ulterior motive. However, Since the other said wasn't saying anything, Wei Guchang wasn't stupid enough to bring it up himself. Now, can we have a decent chat, Brother Wei? Li Yunan looked at Wei Guchang with a sense of contentment on his face, seemingly thinking he was quite skillful to be able to send everyone away with just a few words. If Brother Li has something to say, please don't hesitate. Wei Guchang nodded slightly. This Li would simply like to ask if Brother Wei has any intention to sell that piece of red candle fruit. Li Yunan got straight to the point. Sell it? Wei Guchang's eyes narrowed. Does Brother Li want to buy it? Exactly. Li Yunan nodded sincerely. Wei Guchang grinned meaningfully. Didn't Brother Li just say that this piece of red candle fruit didn't have nearly as much value as its complete form? I wonder why Brother Li wants to buy such a thing. Li Yunan shook his head and said calmly, even if the value of this red candle fruit piece is not longer as great as before, it is still part of a heaven-defying spirit fruit that one may not see in 10,000 years. My medicine pill sect has been studying various spirit grasses and spirit medicines for many millennia, but now that such a rare opportunity has presented itself, if this Li does not make every effort to seize it, when I return to medicine pill sect, the elders will surely punish me. If I can buy this piece of red candle fruit from Brother Wei and bring it back to the sect so the elders can study it, perhaps it will allow our level of alchemy to surge. Of course, if Brother Wei is willing to sell this piece of red candle fruit to me, this Li can guarantee that not only will we provide Shadow Moon Hall with enough Saint Crystals as compensation, on behalf of Medicine Pill Sect, I can also guarantee that the elders of the sect will refine 5 pills for you for free. Wei Guchang originally had no intention of agreeing to the transaction, but after hearing the last condition, his expression changed greatly, and he couldn't immediately refuse. After all, the effects of the red candle fruit were only rumors. No one knew if they were true. And now, there was even a chance that after being cut apart it was completely useless, but being able to obtain 5 pills from the elders of Medicine Pill Sect was a truly valuable opportunity. These years, the 5 elders of Medicine Pill Sect rarely performed alchemy, and each time they did they charged an enormous price. Weighing the two options, Wei Guchang found it a bit difficult to decide. But soon, he said, Brother Li, even if this Wei doesn't say it, you must know that this is not something I can decide on my own. If you are really intent on buying this piece of red candle fruit for Medicine Pill Sect, I suggest you wait until after the Flowing Flame Sand Field closes to let the elders of your Medicine Pill Sect come to Shadow Moon Hall to discuss it in person. Anything the two of us say here is irrelevant. Naturally, I understand this. Li Yunan saw that Wei Guchang wasn't flatly refusing and sensed that there was room for discussion, so he smiled happily and said, since that is the case, after the Flowing Flame Sand Field closes, I'm certain my sect's elders will soon pay your sect a visit. That would be for the best. Wei Guchang nodded with satisfaction. If Brother Li doesn't have anything else to say, this Wei will take his leave first. And very good. Li Yunan smiled and withdrew. After everyone else had left, Li Yunan's smile gradually receded as he looked towards a certain spot in the mountain valley, where a withered body that seemed to have died innumerable years ago lay. This was, without a doubt, the junior brother he had sent to collect the red candle stalk earlier. But now this junior brother had clearly suffered a vicious attack and died a miserable death. Worse though, his space ring was missing. Li Yunan's expression became quite gloomy, but he didn't mention the matter of this junior brother and instead suddenly declared, Let's go, we must return to the sect. Ah? Senior Brother Li, you want to return now? But there's still 2 or 3 months left before the Flowing Flame Sand Field closes. A female disciple turned to Li Yunan and said with surprise, There's no need for us to remain. The second layer treasure area had been completely dug through and the third layer is filled with crisis. I'm afraid that everything good has already been found, so what we must do now report to the sect about the red candle, so the elders can make preparations to visit those sects to purchase those red candle fruit pieces. Li Yunan sneered lightly. Even if the red candle fruit pieces were taken by them, in the end, they will need to ask our medicine pill sect to help them use them. Regarding this kind of treasure, besides our medicine pill sect, no one else knows much about it, so they definitely won't use it rashly, leaving us an opportunity. After hearing what he said, the medicine pill sect disciples who were upset about not being able to seize any benefits here threw away their depressed looks and began smiling broadly again. seemingly rejoicing in their sect's power and influence. 100 kilometers away from the mountain valley, in a desolate but well-hidden place, a group of 4 came to a stop. Naturally, it was Wei Guchang, Yang Kai, Dai Yuan, and Dong Xian'er. After leaving the mountain valley, Wei Guchang had been monitoring their surroundings with his divine sense constantly, maintaining the highest degree of vigilance he could as they traveled a full 100 kilometers without detecting any signs of pursuit before finally relaxing. From beginning to end, Dong Xian'er, Dai Yuan, and Yang Kai had all said nothing and hurried along in silence. It was only here that Wei Guchang stopped, rubbed his space ring unconsciously, turned back, and asked, "Brother Yang, what are your plans?" Instead of Dai Yuan, he first asked Yang Kai, and Yang Kai immediately understood that Wei Guchang suspected that he had obtained a piece of the red candle fruit. It was because the two of them were in the same situation now that he was asking. Of course, Yang Kai didn't reveal anything in his words or actions. Although he had a favorable impression of Wei Guchang, the red candle fruit was too important, so acting cautiously was for the best. Thinking for a while, Yang Kai responded, "I have no definite plans, but I think I'll try venturing further into the 3rd layer to see if I can find something good." Brother Yang plans to go even deeper? Wei Guchang's face changed slightly as he felt this idea was quite strange. According to this thought, if Yang Kai really obtained the last piece of the red candle fruit, he would not want to take unnecessary risks like continuing further into the 3rd layer, but Yang Kai actually said he had such intentions. Not only did Wei Guchang find this strange, Dong Xian'er and Dai Yuan also showed weird expressions. Yang Kai saw this and knew what they were thinking in their hearts. Maintaining a composed look on his face, he simply said, "No one has ever entered the 3rd layer flame area. Even the heaven-defying red candle fruit appeared here, so perhaps further inside there are even better things." When Wei Guchang heard him say this, most of the suspicions in his heart disappeared, and he thought that perhaps Yang Kai hadn't obtained that last piece of the red candle fruit, allowing him to act so uninhibitedly. Nodding slightly, he said, "Since Brother Yang has made such a decision, this way won't say any more. I'll simply wish Brother Yang good luck and fortune. Xian'er and I won't remain here any longer. We will be leaving the flowing flame sand field as soon as possible." Wei Guchang's choice didn't surprise Yang Kai at all. The appearance of the red candle fruit was too big of an incident, and anyone who had a piece of it on them wouldn't be able to feel relaxed. Wei Guchang intended to bring it out from this place quickly and hand it over to the elders of Shadow Moon Hall. Not only was Wei Guchang thinking so, Yang Kai assumed Fang Tianzhong, Chu Changfeng, In Sudai, and that brawny-looking male were also planning on doing so. They wouldn't even think of entrusting this task to others and would definitely take their pieces of red candle fruit out of the flowing flame sand field personally. This was also good news for Yang Kai. With the elites of these sects leaving, there would naturally be far fewer people left in the flowing flame sand field, meaning he would face less competition from now on. Good, Brother Wei and Sister Xian'er must surely be careful along the way. Yang Kai nodded slightly. Wei Guchang nodded before turning to Dai Yuan and asking, "Junior Sister Dai Yuan, how about you?" "Me?" Dai Yuan smiled. "I didn't obtain anything good since I came in, so naturally I'm not in a hurry to leave. I want to remain here and see if I can come across some good fortune in the coming days. Since that's the case, be sure to remain safe." Wei Guchang would certainly not try to persuade Dai Yuan to leave with them. Dong Xian'er stepped forward and spoke a few more words to Dai Yuan before leaving together with Wei Guchang, both of them hurrying towards the outskirts of the flowing flame sand field. After the opening of the flowing flame sand field, one could leave at any point they liked, but ordinarily no one would do so. After all, even if one's strength was low, as long as they could find some fire spirit beasts in the 1st layer flame area and kill them, they could harvest some fire crystal stones. However, the appearance of the red candle fruit this time forced the young geniuses from the most powerful sects on Shadowed Star to leave in advance, an extremely rare event. After the figures of Wei Guchang and Dong Xian'er disappeared from view, Dai Yuan quietly turned to Yang Kai. Like Wei Guchang, she suspected that Yang Kai had obtained the last piece of the red candle fruit, but now that he had actually chosen to remain here and even travel deeper inside, she wasn't so sure of her guess. While thinking about it, she saw Yang Kai suddenly turn to her and say, "Since things here have ended, I'll be taking my leave. I hope Ms. Dai Yuan is blessed with good fortune in the days to come." "Wait!" Dai Yuan called out anxiously. She had never expected that Yang Kai would try to part ways with her so abruptly. "What's wrong?" Yang Kai held no ill will or disgust towards Dai Yuan. Although this woman's face was unsightly, she was intelligent and pure of heart. During their brief time together, Yang Kai's impression of her was quite good. But he didn't know why after he made his intentions to leave so clear, she had actually asked for him to stop. Dai Yuan bit her red lips and a hint of hesitation flashed across her face before she said, "Junior brother Yang, I also want to continue deeper into the third layer. I wonder if we can go together. You want to travel together with me?" Yang Kai was stunned. Although he didn't know much about Dai Yuan, from the first time he met her, he could tell that she was a woman who liked to act alone, possibly as a result of her appearance. As such, Yang Kai had never thought that she would ask to accompany him. This request made Yang Kai feel a bit awkward. The reason he wanted to continue deeper into the third layer was to find a suitable place to refine the profound in sunflower water. So traveling together with Dai Yuan would interfere with his plans. Seeing Yang Kai's hesitant appearance, Dai Yuan also seemed a bit embarrassed, knowing that her proposal had put him in a difficult position. However, her instincts were telling her not to miss this opportunity to travel alone with Yang Kai. What's more, she really did want to venture deeper into the third layer. The third layer was very different from the first and second layers, and Dai Yuan wasn't completely confident she could traverse safely on her own. If she went together with Yang Kai though, the two of them could at least look out for one another, increasing their odds of survival. Therefore, even if she was embarrassed, Dai Yuan still gazed at Yang Kai with a sincere look while secretly praying that he wouldn't simply reject her. She couldn't even remember the last time she was so anxious. She hadn't asked anyone for anything in so long. It had always been her making her own decision regarding what she would do or where she would go. She had made up her mind to rely only on herself. But this time, she had to break her own rules. After a while, Yang Kai's furrowed brow loosened and with a smile, he nodded, "All right, sure." Hearing this, Dai Yuan also smiled happily as gratitude flashed across her beautiful eyes. However, I must make some things clear. Yang Kai's expression became serious. By now, I believe Ms. Dai Yuan understands the situation of this third layer. If we really encounter some kind of trap or other danger I cannot handle, the two of us can only try to find our own solutions. If Ms. Dai Yuan, unfortunately, falls here, don't blame me for not helping. Naturally, Dai Yuan gently nodded. If we really encounter inescapable fatal danger, it can only be said that this Dai Yuan's luck is too bad. And, seeing her readily agree, Yang Kai was satisfied and said, "One more thing, the reason I want to continue deeper into the third layer is that I have something I must do. When the time comes, I'll have to separate from you, so we won't be able to travel together until Flowing Flame Sand Field closes." Dai Yuan showed a hint of surprise, but quickly responded, "Does junior brother Yang want to use this environment to cultivate some secret technique?" It was only natural for her to think like this because a similar environment to this place could not be found outside. Yang Kai needing to handle something here was naturally related to cultivation. "That's right," Yang Kai nodded. "If you don't have any objections, then we can go together." "Of course I have no objections," Dai Yuan agreed. The 2 points mentioned by Yang Kai weren't anything unreasonable, so there was no reason for her to refuse. "That being the case, I'll have to ask Ms. Dai Yuan to take care of me in the coming days." Yang Kai grinned. It is this Dai Yuan who must thank junior brother Yang for his hospitality. After deciding, Yang Kai took out his Yuan magnetic compass, checked his directions, then headed deeper into the third layer together with Dai Yuan. The heat of the third layer was fierce, and Yang Kai needed to constantly push his Saint Qi to resist the invasion of the ambient fire poison. Dai Yuan actually had it easier as her clothes seemed to be some kind of artifact armor, so she only needed to slightly activate it in order to create a faint blue halo around her body that would keep the surrounding heat and fire poison away from her. Along the way, Dai Yuan was continuously shocked. Although from the first time she saw Yang Kai she knew that he had only been using his Saint Chi to resist the surrounding environment and was not wearing any artifact armor. Witnessing it was still quite startling. She didn't know how much Saint Chi Yang Kai had squandered by acting this way, but even after so long he didn't show the slightest fatigue. Dai Yuan really wanted to know just how much Saint Chi Yang Kai had stored in his body that could allow him to spend so carefreely. Fortunately, after walking for a day, Yang Kai proposed that they stop to restore themselves, making Dai Yuan feel he was at least somewhat normal. Using Saint Chi in this manner yet not requiring a break to restore oneself would have truly been strange. Even though Dai Yuan was only slightly activating her artifact armor, she had lost a lot of strength, so even if Yang Kai hadn't proposed a break, she would have taken the initiative to suggest one. The two of them quickly found a quiet place and each found a suitable spot to sit in meditation. Of course, Yang Kai didn't need to meditate to restore himself. The Saint Chi he was using to resist the heat and fire poison was like a drop in the bucket to him. What he really needed was some time to properly process the red candle fruit piece he had obtained. Although in the mountain valley he had hastily crafted a wood attribute box to preserve the red candle fruit piece, his work at the time had been rushed and somewhat rough, so it could not completely ensure that the medicinal efficacies wouldn't slowly leak. Yang Kai took this opportunity to reprocess it. 2 hours later, after handling it properly, Yang Kai left the red candle fruit in his black book space before getting up and walking over towards the spot where Dai Yuan was meditating. Not long after, Yang Kai arrived in front of Dai Yuan. After this short break to restore herself, Dai Yuan's condition had improved noticeably. When Yang Kai came over, she opened her eyes as she had detected him. However, instead of saying anything, a hesitant expression appeared on her face, making Yang Kai curious. "Junior brother Yang, my restoration pills have been used up. Do you have any to spare? I can pay Saint Crystals for them." As Dai Yuan spoke, a faint twinkle flashed across the depths of her beautiful eyes. Yang Kai didn't mind. Although at first, he found it strange that Dai Yuan had used up all her restorative pills. After thinking about it, he realized that she hadn't anticipated entering the third layer where her consumption had dramatically increased. Not suspecting anything, Yang Kai immediately took out a bottle of pills from his space ring and tossed it over with a light smile. "Don't bother with the Saint Crystals. It's just one bottle of pills." Dai Yuan caught it and with a look of gratitude nodded. "Then Dai Yuan will thank junior brother Yang for his generosity." "All right, let's continue forward," Yang Kai said before taking the lead. After Yang Kai turned around and started walking, Dai Yuan quickly opened the bottle of pills, glanced inside, and after seeing the contents, her tender body couldn't help trembling as a look of elation filled her face. When she raised her head and stared at Yang Kai's back, her beautiful eyes flashed with excitement and enthusiasm. Immediately putting away these pills, without saying a word, she quickly followed after him. The third layer flame area was indeed many times more precarious than the first layer. Although the environments of the two were similar, the dangers lurking in each couldn't be compared. When Yang Kai traversed the first layer, with the exception of the strange mountain valley where he was besieged by an unending stream of fire spirit beasts that took some effort to solve, he had basically been able to wander about freely and hadn't even needed to protect himself with his Saint Chi before he reached the second layer. However, in the third layer, Yang Kai had to constantly push his Saint Chi to resist the ambient heat and fire poison. Not only that, but the strength of the fire spirit beasts here was also far greater, with 7th order and 8th order ones constantly appearing from the cracks in the ground. Additionally, there were all sorts of strange barriers and spirit arrays. The fire spirit beasts didn't pose too much threat to Yang Kai and Dai Yuan. As long as their numbers weren't too large, the two of them could kill these beasts and harvest their fire crystal stones. However, after witnessing the ancient spirit array Wei Guchang and his group had fallen into, Yang Kai had been extremely vigilant of any place that seemed dangerous and did not easily dare to enter them. Once Yang Kai discovered such a place, if he could avoid it, he did. If he couldn't, he would use his demon eye of annihilation secretly to see through its risks. Along the way, Yang Kai was constantly on guard. Had it not been for his divine eye of annihilation, this incredible divine ability which could see through all illusions, these past few days, he and Dai Yuan would have fallen into at least 5 ancient spirit arrays. These spirit arrays were extremely well concealed and were not something Saint King realm cultivators could handle. If he had fallen into any of these formations, Yang Kai estimated that his fate would be quite miserable. Because Yang Kai was secretly using his demon eye of annihilation and had brought Dai Yuan safely through these dangerous places, this woman from Colored Glass sect hadn't noticed anything and instead found herself doubting whether this third-layer flame area was a bit unworthy of its reputation. Unaware of the surrounding crisis, she simply followed behind Yang Kai in a relaxed manner. Unfortunately, although the demon eye of annihilation was one of great demon god's supreme divine abilities, Yang Kai had only obtained and refined it for his own use after the fact, so it wasn't omnipotent. As such, Yang Kai and Dai Yuan fell into an ancient spirit array that even Yang Kai failed to notice eventually. When this formation was activated, the surrounding environment changed dramatically, the originally extremely hot area suddenly becoming bitter cold with icy winds howling around them and stinging snow whirling about the sky. It was the complete opposite of their former environment. Sharp icicles immediately stabbed towards the pair from all directions and dragons condensed from the harsh winds began appearing in their surroundings, spitting frigid breath filled with wind blades from their mouths. Dealing with this sudden barrage of attacks was quite difficult. Fortunately, since Yang Kai and Dai Yuan were both alchemists, one of them originally cultivating a Yang attribute secret art while the other cultivated a fire attribute secret art, the pair Saint Chi was useful in resisting this particular spirit array's attacks. Even so, it took the two of them 3 days to break this formation and escape. In the process, Dai Yuan suffered some injuries, and if Yang Kai had not rescued her at the critical moment, her wounds would have been significantly more serious. In such a place where just moving about was dangerous, receiving grievous wounds was basically a death sentence. After this incident, Dai Yuan no longer dared to underestimate the dangers of this third layer and even more carefully followed behind Yang Kai. Yang Kai had also been injured, but compared with his restorative abilities, such minor wounds weren't even worth thinking about. After escaping from the ancient spirit array, Yang Kai immediately brought Dai Yuan to find a small mountain where he opened up a hidden cave. The two hid inside this cave and, like wounded beasts, silently licked their wounds. Only 3 days later did Dai Yuan recover from her injuries and the two set out again. The various means Yang Kai demonstrated along the way, along with the combat effectiveness he displayed, made Dai Yuan thoroughly understand that this First Order Saint King was completely different from any other she had ever encountered. His true fighting strength wasn't under hers in the slightest, and he possessed many methods that left her in awe, and these were just the methods he was willing to show her. No wonder the proud Wei Guchang was so polite towards him. He likely was aware of just how extraordinary Yang Kai's abilities were. Along the way, the pair encountered a number of extremely rare fire attribute spirit grasses and spirit medicines. Whenever they found such a spirit herb, Dai Yuan would volunteer to collect it, displaying excellent harvesting skills and always preserving them in the most optimum way. He didn't know why it was so, but Yang Kai discovered that this woman seemed to be very interested in these herbs. After picking each one, she would begin rambling on and on about these spirit herbs' properties, growing requirements, and uses in pills. She would also talk about condensing medicinal liquids, alchemy techniques, and auxiliary spirit arrays freely, discussing all of these secrets as if she couldn't wait to share them. During this time, Yang Kai kept silent and only listened quietly. Normally, he too would be interested in conversing with Dai Yuan about alchemy. He could see that this woman was actually knowledgeable in the alchemic way, and although she wasn't on his level, there was no harm in discussing such things with her. Unfortunately, at this moment, Yang Kai's mind was entirely focused on refining the profound in sunflower water, and he wasn't in the mood for idle chatter. So he simply brushed off the opportunity to have an alchemy exchange with this woman. Yang Kai's silence made Dai Yuan feel a little disappointed inside, and she even began to doubt whether her previous conjecture was correct. If this wasn't the case, how could Yang Kai say nothing about these spirit grasses and spirit medicines nor show any excitement? She even deliberately made some mistakes in her descriptions of these herbs. But Yang Kai never showed any intention to correct her, depressing her further. Dai Yuan naturally didn't try to take sole possession of the spirit grasses and spirit medicines she picked. She was well aware that without Yang Kai, it would have been impossible for her to arrive here, so whenever she divided up the harvest, She always took the smaller portion while giving the larger part to Yang Kai. Regarding this, Yang Kai didn't try to refuse. He didn't have a deep relationship with Dai Yuan and was only cooperating with her to penetrate the third layer, so he saw no reason to reject these small benefits. After the pair traveled 10 days into the third layer, Dai Yuan began having difficulty continuing. The intense heat in the air felt as if someone was constantly launching a fire attribute attack towards her tender body. Even with the protection of her artifact armor and her pink cloud artifact, Dai Yuan couldn't help sweating profusely, causing her soaking wet robes to tightly cling to her body, exposing her mesmerizing curves. If not for the pink cloud camouflaging her figure, at this moment, her appearance would be quite indecent. Fortunately, it was only her and Yang Kai in this place, and Yang Kai was always walking in front, never showing any intention of turning his gaze back to her. Every step forward consumed a tremendous amount of Dai Yuan's strength, and she couldn't help trembling somewhat as a layer of black qi lingered about her body. This black qi was the fire poison which permeated the flowing flame sand field. Dai Yuan couldn't completely resist the fire poison here anymore, and was slowly but surely being invaded by it, gradually worsening her situation. At this point, thoughts of withdrawing began crossing Dai Yuan's mind, and she was beginning to regret traveling this deep into the third layer. However, she couldn't bring herself to say anything. She and Yang Kai had been traversing the third layer for more than 10 days already. Even if she wanted to retreat now, she wasn't certain she could do so safely. She was now riding a tiger. She could only stand firm and continue following behind Yang Kai without saying a word. Although Yang Kai wasn't in as poor a state as Dai Yuan, he was also by no means comfortable at this moment. His skin felt as if it was constantly being burned, and the waves of heat and fire poison which were constantly pressing down onto him made it feel like he was being crushed by a wave of fire. If it weren't for his huge reserves of Saint Qi, Yang Kai would have constantly needed to find a place to restore himself. As he led the way forward, Yang Kai was constantly using his divine sense to monitor Dai Yuan's movements, so he was well aware of her difficult appearance, but he didn't rush to help her either. The environment here was extremely harsh, but by continuing to persist, one could use it to temper the purity and density of their Saint Qi, which was of great benefit to any cultivator. Helping Dai Yuan to withstand the heat and fire poison here wouldn't be difficult for Yang Kai. But if by doing so he made her lose an opportunity to become stronger, it would do her more harm than good. As the pair traveled deeper and deeper, their speed continued to decrease, soon slowing to a virtual crawl as the environment around them became even harsher. Yang Kai's eyes gradually showed some excitement though, because what he needed now was an extremely hot environment. So the worse things got, the better. After observing his surrounding carefully, Yang Kai secretly estimated that as long as he continued forward another 5 days, he would be able to find a place where he could begin refining the profound in sunflower water. The only troublesome thing now was what he should do with the woman following behind him. Yang Kai hadn't expected that after traveling this far, he had still not found a suitable place to separate from Dai Yuan, and abandoning her now would be tantamount to killing her. It seemed that now his best option would be to find an appropriate place nearby for Dai Yuan to stay while he refined the profound in sunflower water. As long as the place he found was safe enough, it shouldn't be a problem for Dai Yuan to stay there until the flowing flame when Sandfield closed and she was sent out by the world principles here. Just as Yang Kai was thinking like this, a weak shout suddenly came from Dai Yuan behind him. Yang Kai swept her with his divine sense, and his complexion changed greatly, his body flickering to arrive by her side in the next instant. This woman was truly an arrow at the end of its flight. The Saint Qi in her body had completely dried up to the point where she couldn't even activate the protective effects of her artifact armor. The moment her artifact armor's aura failed, a wave of heat had rushed in and overwhelmed her. If Yang Kai hadn't acted swiftly enough just now, Dai Yuan would have been instantly incinerated. Dai Yuan couldn't hold out any longer, and after Yang Kai picked her up, her beautiful eyes only blinked weakly before she fainted without a word. She had overexerted herself to such an extent. Yang Kai couldn't help letting out a wry laugh. He hadn't examined Dai Yuan's condition too carefully before, thinking that since she was still persisting, she hadn't been pushed to her limit, so he kept walking forward. If he had known her situation was this dire, he would have acted a while ago. Dai Yuan's body was incredibly soft and had an amazing elasticity to it. A seductive aroma also wafted from her body and, having fainted, the pink cloud artifact she was using to shield herself had also disappeared, exposing her soaking wet figure to Yang Kai's eyes, causing him to feel a different kind of heat. If not for the issues with her face, this woman would absolutely be a great source of calamity. Shaking his head slowly, Yang Kai pushed his Saint Chi to form a defensive cover, protecting Dai Yuan's body as he carried her and continued deeper into the third layer. Dai Yuan woke up slowly, but before she had even opened her eyes, she felt an incredible world energy aura surrounding her body. Her body's Saint Chi, which had originally been depleted, seemed to have been greatly restored at this moment, and there was a fresh, pleasant scent with a hint of medicinal fragrance that was drifting past her nose. Purple fine jade fruit. Dai Yuan's heart jumped. From this medicinal fragrance alone, she was immediately able to determine the source of the aroma. Opening her eyes quickly, she began taking in her surroundings. Her beautiful eyes were immediately attracted to a bunch of purple, grape-like spirit fruits that were hanging from a kind of vine wrapped around a nearby tree. On this vine, there were actually several bunches of purple grapes, all of them sending out a rich fragrance. They're not mature yet. Dai Yuan showed a little disappointment. Purple fine jade fruits were a genuine origin king-grade low-rank spirit fruit. If they were mature, they would be giving off a rich purple light and look like of exquisite pieces of amethyst. Whether they were used in alchemy or eaten directly, they were of great benefit to cultivators. The rarest thing about this spirit fruit, though, was that it grew in clusters just like ordinary grapes. So the moment she smelled this aroma, Dai Yuan immediately awakened. After all, this was a very rare treasure. Taking a closer look, Dai Yuan suddenly found that there were traces of some grape clusters having been picked recently. After thinking about it, Dai Yuan immediately understood that these had been harvested by Yang Kai. Thinking so, she also remembered how she had suddenly passed out. Turning her head, Dai Yuan found Yang Kai standing not far from herself. However, for some reason she couldn't understand, his expression seemed a little gloomy. He seemed to be quite disgruntled, and his brow was furrowed deeply, as if he was deep in thought, not even having realized she had woken up. "Junior brother Yang." Dai Yuan slowly got up and called out, "You're awake." Yang Kai turned his head and the gloomy look on his face converged a lot. However, his brow didn't fully relax. "Where is this?" Dai Yuan looked around suspiciously at her lush and verdant surroundings while breathing in the beautiful and refreshing spring-like air. In the distance, she could see a seemingly unending mountain range whose peaks towered up into the clouds. These clouds, however, weren't ordinary clouds but were extremely rich and condensed world energy. Just looking at it made one thing that they were standing on the site of a great sect. Dai Yuan was incredibly startled. The place where her colored glass sect was based was also a great paradise, but compared to the environment she was now seeing, it was completely inferior. If a force was really to set up its foundation here, when its disciples cultivated, just how great of an advantage from this land would they acquire? Was there really such a paradise in this world? Looking at the mountains, there seemed to be no trace of human activity, which meant that this place was essentially untouched. Only when Dai Yuan looked up did she realize that the sky was still covered with a layer of red light that blocked out the sun, moon, and stars, a fact which made her feel somewhat puzzled. "There's no need to suspect. We're still inside the flowing flame sand field," Yang Kai said softly. Dai Yuan frowned and seemed to understand something, asking, "Did we return back to the second layer?" "Second layer?" Yang Kai glanced at her for a moment before a smile spread across his face as he shook his head. "No, this is the fourth layer." "What?" Dai Yuan called out in alarm. "The fourth layer?" "Yup, the fourth layer treasure area," Yang Kai said in a much more solemn tone. "Ah." Dai Yuan couldn't help covering her delicate mouth. After recovering from her initial shock, her beautiful eyes trembled violently and she unconsciously murmured, "There really is a fourth layer treasure area?" Yang Kai tilted his head and asked, "Did you know there was such a place?" Dai Yuan gawked before shaking her head. I didn't but I had some suspicions. Since there was a first layer flame area and a second layer treasure area, then after the third layer flame area, perhaps there would be a fourth layer treasure area. This situation just confirms my previous thoughts. Yang Kai heard her say this and simply nodded lightly. Not only did Dai Yuan have such suspicions before, he also had them, but when Yang Kai really set foot here, his mood became extremely complicated. Unlike Dai Yuan's excitement and joy, as if she had just discovered a brand new horizon, Yang Kai actually felt disappointed after his initial surprise, because he failed to obtain the environment he wanted most. After Dai Yuan passed out a few days ago, Yang Kai had carried her as he continued forward, but just as the hot environment around him was about to meet his requirements, he stepped straight through the barrier separating the third layer and the fourth layer. At first, Yang Kai also felt that arriving at such a good place wasn't such a bad thing and began searching around for treasures. After all, he wasn't in too much of a rush to refine the profound in sunflower water. But he was soon very disappointed because precious treasures and spirit herbs seemed to be extremely rare in the fourth layer. After searching for several days, the only thing of note he found was the purple fine jade fruit that had 2 ripe clusters. This in turn made him feel enraged, as if he had been tricked or deceived. Failing to find the environment he was looking for and with precious treasures being so sparse here, it would be strange if Yang Kai was feeling happy. The only thing that pleased him was that after arriving here, he could finally part ways with Dai Yuan. Making up his mind, Yang Kai said, Dai Yuan, I've checked the surrounding area over the past few days. There doesn't seem to be any trace of monster beasts or spirit arrays, so it is quite safe. Dai Yuan paused for a moment, took in what he said, then smiled lightly. Does junior brother Yang want to act alone? And, having his thoughts seen though, Yang Kai didn't try to avoid the subject. Is that so? Dai Yuan gently nodded. All right, then I'll stay here and search for spirit herbs. Since this place is so safe, Dai Yuan won't trouble junior brother Yang any further. Don't mention it. And then I will part ways with Ms. Dai Yuan here. I hope you find what you're looking for, Yang Kai said before walking off. It wouldn't be long before the flowing flame sand field closed, so he had to pick up his pace. Just after he set out though, Dai Yuan suddenly shouted, Junior brother Yang, is there something else? Yang Kai asked back. Dai Yuan bit her lip before saying with a slight smile, In the future, Dai Yuan would like to pay you a visit to properly express her gratitude. Would junior brother Yang be willing to welcome me? Yang Kai's brow furrowed for a moment before it relaxed and he calmly nodded. Naturally, you can ask Wei Guchang about how to find me. Good. Seeing Yang Kai agree, Dai Yuan smiled and seemingly relaxed. That's right. Yang Kai suddenly remembered something and added, although the disciples from the great sects should have all left already, so none of them should be trying to reach this fourth layer, you should still be careful of that guy from Star Emperor sect. I feel he might come here. That man? The image of the stern-faced man floated up in Dai Yuan's mind and she said lightly, If it's that person, there's nothing to worry about. The people from Star Emperor sect never take the initiative to cause trouble. As long as I don't disturb him, he shouldn't concern himself with me. Yang Kai nodded lightly and said no more, his image flickering for a few moments before disappearing from Dai Yuan's view as it plunged into the rolling mountains. Why does he want to go deeper? Dai Yuan waited until Yang Kai had left before mumbling to herself thoughtfully. It seems that the secret technique junior brother Yang wants to cultivate is quite extraordinary. With her intelligence, Dai Yuan was naturally able to see that Yang Kai wanted to travel deeper to see if there was a fifth layer flame area. Even the third layer's environment had failed to meet his requirements, so he could only pin his hopes on there being a fifth layer. Standing in place for a while, Dai Yuan couldn't help smiling bitterly. She had always felt that she was quite talented, and even if she couldn't quite match up to Fang Tianzhong, Chu Changfeng, or the other young rising stars, she was still far stronger than an ordinary third-order Saint King. But now, compared with Yang Kai, she finally realized she had been sitting in a well staring up at the sky. In this world, there actually existed such astonishing geniuses. There was also the man from Star Emperor sect who was an extraordinary existence. During the fight to snatch the red candle fruit, Dai Yuan had felt frightened every time that stern-faced man acted. His combat effectiveness was simply terrifying. Dai Yuan really wondered which one of these two would be stronger if they were to compete. Across the rolling mountains, Yang Kai raced forward like a bolt of lightning. Although he was still suppressed by an inexplicable world principle here and could not fly, without Dai Yuan slowing him down, he was able to use his wind and thunder wings to dramatically increase his pace. He didn't have any intention to remain in the fourth layer. Although he knew that there might be some rare spirit grasses and spirit medicines here, it would be too time-consuming to find them. Yang Kai wanted to quickly see if there was a fifth layer flame area. If there was, his primary objective for coming here could be achieved. The mountain range here was enormous, and as Yang Kai raced through them, he could feel that the world energy aura here was rich to an incredible degree, denser than any other cultivation star he had ever visited before, even faintly comparable to that of the hidden floating continent. Clouds drifted between the mountain peaks like giant snow-white cotton balls. Comparing this place to Dragon Cave Mountain, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. Yang Kai's eyes couldn't help flashing with shock and desire, secretly thinking that if not for the flowing flame sand field being one of the forbidden zones of the shadowed star, this mountain range alone would be enough for all the great sects on the star to fight a bloody war for. Which of these great sects wasn't located on a cultivation paradise? Each of their headquarters would be established above a large-scale earth vein. Only such an earth vein could ensure a steady stream of world energy for disciples to rapidly cultivate and allow a sect to endure for thousands of years. For example, as far as Yang Kai knew, beneath Nine Heavens Holy Land's 9 peaks in Tongxian realm, there was a large earth vein which allowed its ambient world energy aura to be so rich. Soaring Heaven sect was the same. Beneath its 108 peaks lay a vast earth vein. The ancestral founder of any sect would not choose to set down roots in a place devoid of world energy. The first condition for choosing where to establish a sect would be the existence of an earth vein, and the higher the quality it was, the better. The rolling mountains Yang Kai was currently traversing would definitely be an ideal place to establish a sect. As long as one allowed disciples of their sect to cultivate in this paradise, they would grow far faster than ordinary cultivators. Yang Kai was certain there was more than one peak-level earth vein running below this mountain range. Unfortunately, this was inside the flowing flame sand field, a place inaccessible once every several hundred years for half a year. No one could establish a sect here as no one could remain here for an extended period of time. This reality made Yang Kai sigh with regret. Although he was currently all alone, he had many friends and relatives back in Tongxian realm. If one day he could go back and bring them out into the star field, this mountain range would be an excellent place to settle down. Of course, he would first need to have enough strength to protect this place. Otherwise, it would only draw the calamity of extermination to him. Shaking his head, Yang Kai put aside such thoughts from his mind and concentrated on rushing forward. The mountains here were pristine and untouched, without even any birds or beasts. It seemed that, in this fourth layer, the only living creature was Yang Kai. Also, as he expected, even if there were spirit grasses and spirit medicines in this place, they were extremely rare, because as he ran forward, he never encountered any spirit herbs or even caught a whiff of medicinal fragrance in the air. 10 days after Yang Kai entered this mountain range, as he was continuing to hurry along, he suddenly came to a stop, frowned, and listened carefully, his expression changing greatly a moment later. He actually heard some loud noises coming from somewhere up ahead. Had someone else arrived here even before him? A certain stern-faced man's image flashed across Yang Kai's mind as he secretly guessed whether he had entered this place. The sounds Yang Kai heard didn't seem to be a result of battle, but rather someone constantly bombarding something. The violent energy fluctuation which spread out from up ahead carried great momentum with him even across a great distance. Yang Kai immediately became curious. Since he entered this mountain range 10 days ago, he hadn't encountered anything of note, so someone in front of him making such wild movements naturally drew his attention. Concealing his aura, Yang Kai quietly proceeded forward to see what was going on. Although Yang Kai didn't cultivate any kind of concealment technique, his divine sense was extremely powerful, so as long as he shielded himself from outside perceptions with it, assuming the cultivation of a different party wasn't too high, they shouldn't be able to discover him. As he quietly crept closer towards the source of the sound, Yang Kai was able to feel how terrifying the strength of this person was. After advancing about 10 kilometers, Yang Kai's steps came to a halt as he stared towards the front with a look of shock. 1,000 meters in front of him, the disciple from Star Emperor sect stood straight like a sword with a stern look upon his face. It was without a doubt the man who cut the red candle fruit into several portions in front of everyone's eye, and at this moment, an astonishing Saint Chi aura was pulsing from his body. Yang Kai didn't know what secret technique he used to do it, but this stern-faced man's body was currently suspended a meter or so above the ground, and his muscular frame was shaking slightly, his face extremely red as he madly poured his Saint Chi into a silver spear that he was stabbing fiercely towards the space in front of him. However, what surprised Yang Kai weren't the shocking methods this man was using. While his methods were truly good, his silver spear seemed to multiply every time he stabbed it forward, each spear image carrying with it the power and momentum of a true flood dragon. If he were to face such a violent storm of attacks, Yang Kai had to admit that he could only try to dodge, otherwise he would suffer no simple flesh wound. But the space in front of this man seemed to have an invisible barrier, one that was completely blocking all the giant silver spear strikes. In the air, only faint ripples could be seen as they constantly spread out, neutralizing all of these spear attacks with ease. Barrier? No. A sect defending array. Yang Kai's heart jumped. He had once served as the Holy Master of Nine Heavens' Holy Land, and when Nine Heavens' Holy Land was being besieged by powerful enemies, he had personally opened the sect defending array which protected the Nine Peaks, so at this moment it was easy for him to tell what exactly he was looking at. There was actually a sect defending array in this wild mountain range where there were neither insects nor birds, and this sect defending array was incredibly powerful. No matter how the stern-faced man from Star Emperor sect attacked it, this barrier remained completely motionless and showed no signs of being damaged. Yang Kai was startled. The flowing flame sand field had existed for at least tens of thousands of years, and since it came into being, no one had stepped into its third layer and lived. The same was obviously true for the fourth layer and fifth layer, which could only mean that this sect defending array had remained here in this state for at least a few tens of thousands of years. If the sect defending array's defensive capabilities were still this strong after tens of thousands of years, it was difficult to image just how powerful it would have been all those eons ago. Why was there a sect defending array here though? This kind of thing was generally arranged by a sect with massive human and financial resources. Yang Kai's gaze left the Star Emperor sect disciples back and looked further ahead, his eyes narrowing as soon as they did. Among the distant mountains, there were even denser white clouds and countless spirit mountains that were being shielded by this sect defending array. Although Yang Kai wasn't able to clearly see these peaks or their surroundings, he could see faint outlines of seemingly grand buildings and magnificent palaces through the rolling fog. However, after looking more carefully, Yang Kai found that there was nothing there aside from this, only a continuous sea of clouds out of which the corners of some buildings would occasionally peek. There really was a sect here. Just as Yang Kai was lamenting that this place could not be used to establish the foundation of a sect, he discovered a sect already existed amongst these rolling mountains, filling his heart with amazement. Who could build a sect in such a place though? What kind of people lived inside? However, after thinking about it, Yang Kai vaguely felt something was wrong. This disciple from Star Emperor sect was raising such a ruckus, so if there were anyone inside, they wouldn't just stand by and watch. It seemed that no one was occupying the sect. It was just a ruin. After understanding this point, Yang Kai's heart clenched. If this was truly an ancient sect ruin, and judging from the vague jade palaces that could occasionally be seen, a fairly intact one, if one could enter, they may be able to find countless treasures. Anyone who could establish a sect in this kind of place, and arrange such a profound sect defending array, was not some obscure existence. How could there not be many wondrous treasures left inside? Who's there? A low shout suddenly rang in Yang Kai's ears, waking him from his daze and at the same time shaking his knowledge sea, as if it had been struck by a sharp sword. Yang Kai's expression became cold, and he quickly urged his spiritual energy to resist this attack that was trying to break open his knowledge sea's defense. At the same time, his figure flickered and he disappeared from where he was standing, appearing again several dozen meters away in the next instant. The The stern-faced man from Star Emperor sect had stopped his attacks at some point and fallen to the ground, still holding his silver spear as he stared at Yang Kai in amazement. Yang Kai laughed bitterly to himself, knowing that because he became a bit excited just now after discovering these sect ruins, he had revealed himself. Now that he had been discovered, Yang Kai didn't bother trying to conceal himself and stepped out boldly. In any case, he didn't have any malicious intentions towards this guy, so there was no need for him to feel embarrassed. "It's you," the Star Emperor sect disciple called out in surprise. He had seen Yang Kai twice so far, once in the stalactite cave, and once during the red candle fruit incident, but from beginning to end he had not realized just how deeply Yang Kai had hidden his strength. The divine sense attack he had just used was resolved by the other party with ease, demonstrating just how strong he was. This made the stern-faced man re-examine Yang Kai, trying to see if he had hidden his cultivation realm. However, what shocked the stern-faced man was that no matter how he probed, he couldn't detect any trace of Yang Kai concealing his cultivation. It seemed that the other party really was just a first-order Saint King. After realizing this, though, he didn't delve into it any deeper. He came from Star Emperor sect and was a rarely seen genius, so even if Yang Kai really was hiding his cultivation, he wouldn't fear him, not to mention that this person might have cultivated some special concealing technique or be wearing a strange artifact that gave the illusion of him being a first-order Saint King. He didn't want to believe that Yang Kai really was just a first-order Saint King. Friend shouldn't misunderstand. Yang Kai knit his brow. "I simply heard some noise coming from here and came to take a look." Yang Kai explaining himself wasn't because he was afraid of this stern-faced man, but rather because this man seemed like someone not to be provoked easily. Yang Kai was unwilling to get into a fight with him over some small misunderstanding. To his surprise, though, the other party just gently nodded, the vigilance on his face relaxing significantly, without showing any aggressive intent. This man even withdrew his silver spear. Without asking anything else, the stern-faced man suddenly inquired, "What's your name?" Yang Kai hesitated for a moment before reporting his name. "Lung Qing." The other party responded in kind. Yang Kai frowned inadvertently. He didn't believe that the other party would try to learn his name for no reason. This man had never said a word when facing Fang Tianzhong, Chu Changfeng, or anyone else. He was the type of heaven-blessed genius that wouldn't put anyone in his eyes. However, he had actually introduced himself here, causing Yang Kai to become slightly vigilant. Taking another glance towards the sect defending array as well as the indistinct buildings inside, Yang Kai's brow furrowed even deeper. Sure enough, just as he was worried, the man named Lang Qing asked, "Are you interested in joining forces to break this sect defending array?" "Sorry, I'm not interested." Yang Kai shook his head without hesitation. Lang Qing was somewhat startled, seemingly not having thought someone in this world would actually reject his proposal. On top of that, was there really someone who could be so indifferent facing this kind of sect ruins? After his thoughts turned for a moment, Lang Qing said lightly, "Do you think the two of us have no chance of breaking this shield array?" "Exactly. I don't think there's much hope, so I don't want to waste my energy." Yang Kai nodded frankly. When this guy had been attacking earlier, Yang Kai had also observed the sect defending array's response and fully realized how extraordinary it was. Additionally, this was just the outermost layer of this defensive array. Lang Qing's fierce attacks just now hadn't even been able to shake this barrier, so Yang Kai didn't believe him joining the effort would make a difference. Of course, if he didn't hesitate to use 10 or 20 drops of golden blood all at once to create a massive explosion, it might be possible to break this kind of barrier. But so, what if they could break this first layer? Yang Kai was well aware that beyond this outer layer there were definitely more, and the further one penetrated, the more dangers they would encounter. Yang Kai wasn't confident he could overcome all these barriers, and even if he could, he didn't want to spend the time doing so. A sect defending array that had remained intact for tens of thousands of years was not something to trifle with. That was why he flatly rejected Lang Qing's proposal without any hesitation. "Why do you think I can't break it?" What surprised Yang Kai, though, was that this man who always wore an indifferent expression suddenly seemed to be annoyed when Yang Kai spoke so bluntly, a dangerous aura even slowly welling up from his body. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed, and he said coldly, If you think you can break it open, feel free to do so. I'll take my leave." Saying so, he turned around and left, a moment later disappearing into the forest. Lung Qing stared at the disappearing back of Yang Kai, his expression somewhat tight. He didn't know why, but this cultivator named Yang Kai didn't seem anxious or fearful in the slightest when facing him. On top of that, Yang Kai gave him a somewhat dangerous feeling. Although this feeling only appeared for a moment, it was enough to put Lung Qing on alert. This feeling only appeared when he was confronting truly powerful people. Did that mean this Yang Kai had the ability to wound him? Shaking his head, Lung Qing no longer thought about this matter and simply made a note to himself to ask the old monsters back on Star Emperor Mountain about if there was some powerful master in this world that could cultivate such a strange disciple. After Yang Kai ran out 20 kilometers or so, he heard a loud rumbling sound from behind him. Apparently, the man named Lung Qing was attacking the sect defending array again. If others were willing to engage in such fruitless activities, Yang Kai wouldn't stop them. In any case, the two of them had nothing to do with one another. Originally, Yang Kai had reminded Dai Yuan to be careful if she encountered this cultivator called Lung Qing. But now it seems those worries were superfluous. As long as Lung Qing was attacking the sect defending array here, it would basically consume all his remaining time. Dai Yuan, on the other hand, who was searching for spirit herbs, wouldn't stupidly come over and disturb Lung Qing. Because of the obstruction of this sect defending array, Yang Kai had to make a long detour. Occasionally glancing inside it, Yang Kai confirmed that all he could see were some blurry traces of buildings among the many spirit peaks. 10 days later, Yang Kai was still able to feel the existence of the sect defending array, filling his heart with shock. The range cover by this sect defending array had to at least be several thousand kilometers, which meant that this entire region was the extent of this ancient sect. It was conceivable just how astonishing this sect had been tens of thousands of years ago and just how many disciples belonged to it. However, such a massive sect was now completely empty, an extremely strange matter. Along the way, Yang Kai didn't have any gains, but after 10 days, he finally managed to circumvent the area covered by the sect defending array. At the same time, on the horizon, Yang Kai spotted a faint red glow. When these rays of light reached his eyes, Yang Kai's spirits lifted greatly, and he couldn't stop himself from grinning. His guess had been right. At the deepest depths of this fourth layer there really was a 50 layer. And that fifth layer was another flame area. Yang Kai really couldn't figure out what this flowing flame sand field was. After the passing through the first layer flame area, there was a treasure area, then another flame area, and so on and so forth. Thinking about it, if one were to look down from high above, they would probably see the flowing flame sand field as 3 broad, distinct, concentric flaming rings someone had tossed onto the ground. Thinking so, Yang Kai's heart jumped. If this was really the case, then there should also be a 6th layer. After gawking for a moment, Yang Kai couldn't help chuckling. He hadn't even reached the 5th layer yet, much less traversed it, yet he was already wondering about a 6th layer. If possible, Yang Kai wanted to investigate his hypothesis, but the time he had left was somewhat short. The further one went into the flowing flame sand field. The less space there was to move around in, and after just 2 days, Yang Kai found himself standing in front of the bright red barrier to the 5th layer. Even before he entered it, Yang Kai could feel the oppressive heat in front of him and understood that it was incomparable to that of the 3rd layer. Yang Kai was delighted and, with a dignified expression, pushed his Saint Chi to form a protective cover over his body before stepping forward. In just one step, Yang Kai seemed to have stepped into another world. Inside this place, fierce heat waves crashed towards him from all directions. The fire attribute energy here was so dense it actually condensed into a physical substance, winding around Yang Kai's body like a million tiny snakes. In an instant, Yang Kai felt a stinging pain all over his skin. His entire body seemed to be on fire, and even the Saint Chi he was using to guard himself seemed to show signs of boiling. Yang Kai's complexion changed, and he hurriedly condensed a layer of demonic flame around himself. However, even his demonic flames couldn't completely resist the invasion of the ambient heat, and the tiny snake-like fire auras fiercely fought against it, taking Yang Kai's body as a battlefield, one side trying to invade, the other trying to block. An extremely fierce struggle ensued. The Saint Chi in his meridians was literally flooding out of his pores, shocking Yang Kai greatly. Quickly pulling out 2 high-rank Saint crystals, Yang Kai held one in each hand and began rapidly absorbing energy from them. With this rate of consumption, if he didn't constantly supplement himself, the Saint Chi inside his body would soon run dry, and once it was exhausted, he would have to burst a drop of golden blood, transforming it back into Saint Chi. On this trip to the flowing flame sand field, Yang Kai had used several drops of golden blood, and realizing its great power, he naturally didn't want to waste it if there was another option. Lifting his foot, Yang Kai stepped forward again, increasing his output of Saint Chi as he proceeded deeper into the 5th layer. The Saint crystals in his hand were constantly being changed, and in just half a day, he had consumed over 10,000 of them, transforming them all into dust. Only his intrepid physique could support such unscrupulous absorption of Saint crystal energy. Other cultivators with weaker physical bodies and meridians would have exploded themselves with such reckless actions. His previously prepared restorative pills finally came in handy at this moment. Yang Kai even used his myriad drug liquid which had long sat idle in his black book space. Although this kind of consumption was extremely terrifying, Yang Kai wasn't panicked at all. Even if he somehow ended up exhausting all of his golden blood, he could borrow power from the divine tree. The divine tree was still sleeping right now though as it was in the process of evolving, so unless absolutely necessary, Yang Kai didn't want to disturb it. A day later, Yang Kai was forced to stop. Although the farther one went, the hotter the environment became and the more helpful it would be for him with refining the profound in sunflower water, he had all but reached his limit. If he ventured any further, even he would be in danger. Yang Kai furrowed his brow for a while and was just about to find a nearby place to start refining the profound in sunflower water when he heard a rumbling sound and felt the earth shudder violently. Yang Kai's face sank and, standing perfectly still, he ignored the damage he would suffer by doing so and released his divine sense to investigate his surroundings. When Yang Kai extended his divine sense beyond his body, it was immediately distorted by the extreme temperatures, and although he only spread it out for a moment, his divine sense was still burned slightly. This made Yang Kai's expression contort in pain, but fortunately his divine sense was extremely powerful, and with the soul-warming lotus constantly nourishing his soul, this bit of damage could be ignored. During his brief investigation, Yang Kai was able to locate a certain landmark several thousand meters away from his current position. Looking over in that direction, all he could see was a horrifying red eruption of heat coming from the ground. This burst of heat soared up into the sky like a soaring dragon and seemed as if it would burst through the red curtain covering the sky, but the flowing flame sand field's barrier seemed able to perfectly disperse this wave of heat, scattering it evenly across its surface at the moment of impact. An extremely pure fire attribute energy was being released from the place where the heat wave had appeared, and it wasn't long before it swept across Yang Kai's position. At once, the sand and stones in the 5th layer of the flowing flame sand field were blown away by this heat shockwave. Yang Kai's heart clenched as he stood in place and waited until this eruption finally subsided before arduously heading over towards its source. After 2 full hours, Yang Kai managed to traverse the 1,000-meter distance and found himself staring at a huge pit, his expression filled with doubt and uncertainty. This was a massive hole in the ground, and standing at its edge and looking down, all Yang Kai was able to see was dark red lava that seemed to be flowing about like water. At this moment, while still roiling, had no semblance of its previous explosive ferocity. The fire attribute aura which escaped from the depths of this hole was quickly mixing with the air of the 5th layer and strengthening its ambient heat little by little. Occasionally, some gravel would fall into this pit and disintegrate upon contact with the lava, making it clear just how terrifyingly hot it was. It looked like a volcanic crater, but it was clearly not a volcano, because this giant hole was on flat ground and no magma was erupting from it. Moreover, Yang Kai was keenly aware that there seemed to be countless tunnels extending out in all directions beneath this pit. Every now and then, one could even hear what sounded like regular breathing coming from down below. The gears in Yang Kai's mind started to turn, and he soon blurted out a name, Earth Lung Fire Pond? After speaking, Yang Kai was instantly stunned, seemingly unable to believe what he was looking at. An earth-lung fire pond was an extremely rare subterranean fire vein, and it was the most prized geographical formation for artifact refiners. When an artifact refiner was engaged in their craft, they could take advantage of this underground fire vein's extreme heat to help them temper and purify materials, saving them a great deal of time and energy. However, there were very few sects that could possess an earth-lung fire pond. Xianxia had not had much contact with many sects on Shadowed Star and naturally didn't know much about their secrets or heritage, but he was fairly certain that on this star, there were absolutely not more than 3 sects which possessed an earth-lung fire pond for artifact refining. One of the most recognizable characteristics of an earth-lung fire pond was the faint breathing sound it gave off, as if it were a pair of lungs contracting and releasing air, making it easy for Xianxia to recognize it at a glance. Judging from the purity of the fire attribute aura being released from the earth-lung fire pond in front of me, it was definitely of the highest quality. Any artifact refiner who worked here would be able to completely display their skills and maximize their efficiency, refining artifacts they wouldn't usually be able to while greatly enhancing their final product's might. Many thoughts flashed across Xianxia's mind as he stared down in pleasant surprise. Although he couldn't take this earth-lung fire pond away with him, it was without a doubt the best place for him to refine the profound in sunflower water. He hadn't been expecting to come across such a perfectly location. Originally, Xianxia was planning to simply find a nearby spot where the heat was especially high to refine the profound in sunflower water. But now he decided to take it what was down below here first. Although it was dangerous to dive into such a place, the great the danger, the greater the reward. If a cultivator wanted to advance, they couldn't fear danger. Considering all this, Xianxia's expression became firm, but he also didn't dare act recklessly. Pushing his demonic flames to their maximum, Xianxia also took out his purple shield and used it to create a purple light halo and a miniature sandstorm around his body. He didn't stop here though. Xianxia freely spent his Saint Qi to condense several dozen grand heavenly shields around his body as well. Only after completing these preparations did he take a deep breath and jump into the pit. Mid-air, Xianxia's expression turned extremely solemn as he swiftly glanced around. Finding a good foothold in a certain potion, his figure flickered and he quickly descended to reach a rocky outcropping. Identifying another foothold, Xianxia leapt out, repeating this process again and again as he descended into the giant hole. Chi. The lava down below was very unstable, and it bubbled up and burst from time to time, sputtering molten rock across the walls of the pit. The lava here was much more powerful than the lava in the ancient spirit array Wei Guchang had previously fallen into. Several spurts of lava slammed into Xianxia, shattering his grand heavenly shields uncontacted. In the blink of an eye, the several dozen barriers he had put up around himself had been completely destroyed. The sandstorm which formed the next layer of protection around Xianxia was somewhat successful in sweeping aside these bits of lava, while those that still managed to make it through were blocked by the layer of demonic flames around Xianxia's body. Seeing this, it allowed him to put down his worries and concentrate on finding appropriate footholds. As he descended, Xianxia continuously replenished his destroyed grand heavenly shields. About 30 breaths of time later, Xianxia's eyes brightened, and his figure flickered to the side, leaping directly into a hole in the rock wall. As soon as he entered this cave, Xianxia felt the heat around him decrease dramatically, as if it was being blocked by the invisible barrier. This phenomenon immediately drew Xianxia's curiosity. Turning around and looking out, Xianxia gawked in shock, because he saw countless caves on the opposite wall, all of which seemed to be roughly the same as the one he had entered and were obviously not naturally generated because numbers had been engraved at their mouths. These caves turned out to be artificially opened. With a little thought, Xianxia immediately understood what all of this was about and quickly began investigating the cave he had entered. This cave was quite deep, running at least 100 meters into the rock. After walking down this long, straight passage, Xianxia came to a spacious stone room. The walls were adorned with strange lighting stones that, despite having been here for countless years, were still emitting soft light, making the stone room quite bright. With these lights for illumination, Xianxia began looking around the stone room while putting away his purple shield and dispelling his demonic flames. The floor of the stone chamber was smooth and flat, and there was a massive spirit array engraved onto its surface. This spirit array still seemed to be intact and was conducting heat from outside towards the center of the room. In the center of the stone room stood a huge tripod furnace that was engraved with coiling dragons and soaring phoenixes but otherwise seemed somewhat plain in design. At first glance, it was obvious that this furnace was quite old and after being baked with such intense heat for so many years, was bright red and exuded an extremely hot aura. Xianxia inspected it and soon determined that this furnace was actually an origin-grade low-rank artifact refining furnace. Yang Yen used to use an artifact refining furnace to quench materials, but since the birth of the stone puppet, she no longer needed to use it. Only occasionally, while refining high-grade artifacts, she would use her furnace for the final shaping and adjustments. Sure enough, when he saw such an artifact refining furnace, Xianxia showed a look of comprehension. When he saw so many openings in the stone walls across from him, Xianxia had a guess in mind, and now that he had seen the situation inside the stone room, it confirmed his guess. This earth-lung fire pond was really a place where a great sex artifact refiner performed artifact refining. It wasn't surprising that such a treasure land would be occupied by a sex artifact refiners. The caves cut into the walls must have been created for artifact refiners to use. And the unknown ancient spirit array drawn on the stone chamber's floor must have been designed to extract the extreme heat from the earth-lung fire pond for artifact refiners to use. Amazing! Xianxia was speechless. The methods and means needed to create such an elaborate setup inside this earth-lung fire pond was not something ordinary people could achieve. Without a doubt, an Origin King Realm Master was involved in setting this up. The only regret Xianxia had was that the Origin-grade low-rank artifact refining furnace here had been damaged quite severely, with many parts of it having melted or warped. It seemed that it was unable to endure being heated so recklessly for so many years. On the other hand, the reason the spirit array here was able to run for tens of thousands of years was definitely because the earth-lung fire pond was constantly supplying it with energy. Understanding this, Xianxia turned his head to look around, his eyes soon landing on a stone table of sorts in the corner of the room. Although Xianxia didn't know much about spirit arrays, after being together with Yang Yen for so long, he had at least gained some general knowledge. This stone table should be the control center for this stone room spirit array. Walking over to the stone table, Xianxia poured his Saint Qi into it and sure enough, along with a loud rumbling, the spirit array went dim and ceased functioning, no longer drawing in heat from the earth-lung fire pond. Xianxia waited until the artifact refining furnace had cooled down a bit before walking up and probing it more carefully. However, after a quick inspection, Xianxia was as disappointed as he expected to be. After it cooled down, this artifact refining furnace actually broke into pieces with just a light tap. Moreover, whatever material that was being quenched inside of it had already become useless slag. This wasn't surprising, though. After being exposed to such high temperatures for so many years, even the most precious of materials would turn into scrap. If the origin-grade low-rank artifact refining furnace itself had been destroyed, how could the materials it was being used to quench have possibly endured? But this was just one stone room. There were many others just outside. Thinking that after stumbling into a treasures trove, he couldn't just walk out empty-handed, Xianxia began investigating the stone chambers one by one. It took 2 days to explore at least 300 stone chambers, but apart from obtaining some artifact refining tools and materials which were stored in these stone chambers, Xianxia actually didn't obtain much of note as all of the artifact refining furnaces were essentially damaged beyond repair. In terms of artifact refining materials, Xianxia had collected a ton. Of the hundreds of stone chambers, not all were as empty as the one Xianxia initially searched. Some of them contained large stacks of ores and materials used in artifact refining. There were also some unusual materials which had been preserved all these years without suffering any damage. And the quantity of all of them was massive. With hundreds of stone rooms, even if only 1/10 of them contained items, that was not a sum to be underestimated. Xianxia was only dissatisfied because the harvest was somewhat different from his expectations. At least, the harvest did not yield anything precious. However, after searching through these stone chambers, Xianxia noticed an interesting pattern. The deeper he went, the purer and more intense the fire aura gathered in each room. This was easy to understand though, as naturally the further down one went, the closer one would get to the source of the earth-lung fire pond. When Xianxia began refining the profound in sunflower water, he would obviously need to pick a chamber as far down as possible. 2 days later, Xianxia finally reached the deepest part of earth-lung fire pond, where only 2 unexplored chambers remained. These 2 artificial caves were built at an impressive depth and at first glance, were clearly meant for the sect's finest artifact refiners. The 2 entrances to these caves weren't opposite of one another but instead, placed side by side. The openings both seemed empty, without significant difference to those above. But after searching through so many of these chambers, Xianxia knew that without carefully exploring them, he wouldn't be able to tell if there was something of value inside. Hoping for some more gains, Xianxia randomly chose the cave on the left and leapt inside like an arrow released from its string. The next moment, Xianxia appeared inside the long straight cave and after stabilizing his stance, began walking inside. Surprisingly, this tunnel seemed to be a few thousand meters long. Xianxia walked for quite a while yet still did not reach the end. While surprised by this development, it also raised his expectations. Sure enough, this cave was built for the best artifact refiners in this sect as it was clearly constructed differently. All that remained was to see if there was anything good left inside. After walking a couple thousand meters deeper, Xianxia suddenly saw a touch of soft white light illuminating up ahead. This light couldn't be described as brilliant but instead gentle. It seemed to have some soul-calming effects to it. When Xianxia saw this white light, he couldn't help but relaxing. Picking up his pace again, Xianxia rushed forward and soon arrived inside a huge stone room. This stone chamber was more than 10 times larger than any of the hundreds of stone chambers he had explored over the past 2 days, and even though he was quite deep underground at the moment, Xianxia felt the air here was still clean and clear, without the slightest stagnant taste. All in all, it was incomparable to the other stone rooms. All of the other stone chambers, to varying degrees, had a gloomy, depressing air about them. Around this stone room were 8 fist-sized white orbs that were emitting the soft white light. Just basking in these lights was able to soothe one's soul and quiet one's mind. Xianxia raised his brow as he glanced around at these 8 orbs before scanning the rest of the room. However, after probing the stone chamber, Xianxia let out a disappointed sigh. With how grand and magnificent this stone chamber was, Xianxia had expected there to be many treasures inside. How could he have known, though, that this stone room was like most of the others, completely empty, except for the huge artifact refining furnace at the center. The spirit array engraved in the stone room was still running, extracting the purest fire attribute energy from the earth-lung fire pond to heat this huge furnace unceasingly for tens of thousands of years. When Xianxia's eyes landed on this artifact refining furnace, though, they immediately lit up and a grin appeared on his face. He found that this artifact refining furnace was still intact, completely undamaged. He had previously found hundreds of artifact refining furnaces in those stone rooms, but every single one of them had been transformed into scrap after being baked for tens of thousands of years. There were even a number of Origin King-grade furnaces among them, which made Xianxia particularly distressed. But now he had found an intact artifact refining furnace here. No matter how it had survived all these years, what was certain was that this artifact refining furnace's grade was not low, at least Origin King grade. Only this grade of artifact refining furnace had any chance of surviving all these years. While Xianxia rejoiced, he quickly began searching for the control panel for the stone room's spirit array. Unlike other stone chambers, though, which only had one stone table serving as a control terminal for this spirit array, there were 4 such tables in this stone chamber. It took Xianxia some time to completely shut down this spirit array completely. Xianxia hadn't cultivated an ice or cold attribute secret art, nor did he have an artifact with such an attribute, so he could only wait for the temperature in this artifact refining furnace to naturally fall. About a day later, the crimson halo surrounding the artifact refining furnace gradually dispersed, and although it still looked hot, with Xianxia's strength, he was not afraid. Quickly walking over to the artifact refining furnace, Xianxia swept it with his divine sense and found that it was as exactly as he expected. This artifact refining furnace was really Origin King grade, but the quality was so high he couldn't judge its exact rank. From what he could see, it shouldn't be any lower than Origin King grade mid-rank. The artifact refining furnace itself was about 5 meters tall and had a 3-leg, 2-handle design, but unlike all the previous artifact refining furnaces Xianxia had previously come across, instead of dragon and phoenix patterns, a strange bird was the only design emblazoned on its surface. Xianxia stared at this artifact refining furnace for a while but couldn't identify what this strange bird was. It looked somewhat like a phoenix but also somewhat like a crane. It had a long beak, powerful claws, and 3 long tail feathers that seemed both elegant and beautiful. All of this bird features were exquisitely defined and incredibly lifelike, almost as if it could leap out from the surface of this artifact refining furnace at any moment. Examining it carefully, Xianxia reviewed all the information he had read in the ancient books in Zhong'ao's library, trying to identify what strange monster beast it was supposed to be. But when his eyes landed on the strange bird's eyes, his brow furrowed. For an instant, Xianxia felt as if the strange bird was staring back at him. However, when he looked closer, Xianxia found that this strange bird was exactly the same as before, without a trace of vitality, which confused him. But having sensed something a moment ago, Xianxia didn't dare act sloppily. Who knew if there was something unusual about this artifact refining furnace? Intensifying his divine sense output, Xianxia carefully inspected the interior of this artifact refining furnace and quickly determined that there was nothing else but a pool of burnt materials within it, allowing him to breathe a sigh of relief. This artifact refining furnace was an amazing find, not something to be missed. Alchemy couldn't be performed in such a massive furnace, and since he obtained his conflagration knowledge he rarely used his Saint Chi to perform alchemy. After his Saint Chi had transformed into demonic flame, he had completely ceased using his Chi to perform alchemy. However, this thing could be brought back for Yang Yan to use. Although she had the stone puppet and didn't need to worry about quenching materials, the later steps in the refining process such as forging and engraving still required a good artifact refining furnace. Yang Yan had helped him a lot, going all out to arrange powerful spirit arrays and refine artifacts. The two of them also shared secrets like the stone puppet and space spirit crystal load. So even if this artifact refining furnace was of Origin King grade, Xianxia would not be stingy with it. Having made a decision, Xianxia released his divine sense to wrap up this huge artifact refining furnace in preparation to move it into his space ring. At that moment, though, an unexpected change occurred. The artifact refining furnace, which had almost completely cooled down by now, suddenly began shaking and a mass of astonishingly hot flames burst out from it. These flames immediately began incinerating Xianxia's divine sense. Xianxia was incredibly shocked by this development and hurriedly took back his divine sense. But even so, he suffered a loss with almost half of the divine sense threads he had released being burnt to ash. As his face paled, Xianxia's heart filled with astonishment. His divine sense was composed of conflagrated spiritual energy and was extremely hot. Even before discovering this earth-lung fire pond, when he was probing the 5th layer, his divine sense hadn't been destroyed this fast. Yet, the flames coming from this furnace were able to instantly incinerate it. Didn't this mean that the flames coming from this furnace were countless times more powerful than those in the 5th layer? Moreover, the flames that appeared seemed both nimble and agile. After repulsing Xianxia's divine sense, they instantly vanished, as if everything just now had been some kind of illusion. Xianxia naturally knew this wasn't some kind of hallucination though. With the splitting headache he currently felt, how could everything have simply been an illusion? Before Xianxia could even begin trying to figure out what had just happened, the strange bird carved onto the surface of the artifact refining furnace came to life. Its elegant body flew out from the artifact refining furnace and transformed into a beautiful scarlet firebird. An astonishing heat fiercely radiated from the strange bird, and after flying a small circle around the furnace, it dove straight towards Xianxia. With an expression that was a mix of shock and pain, Xianxia exclaimed, "Artifact spirit!" Xianxia immediately understood why the flames just now had seemed so nimble. He also realized that it wasn't just his imagination that the bird was spying on him a moment ago. It actually was. Xianxia hadn't been able to detect it because this firebird didn't have a physical form. It was an artifact spirit, an artifact spirit born from this artifact refining furnace. Xianxia didn't know if it had originally existed together with this furnace or if it had slowly formed after being exposed to the burning heat of the earth-lung fire pond for tens of thousands of years. But remember that this was an artifact spirit of an origin king-grade artifact. Xianxia's heart sank. Xianxia had fought many people and had seen various high-end and low-end artifacts, but never had he encountered an artifact with such a powerful artifact spirit. Artifact spirits were extremely rare existences to begin with. Firstly, the conditions for them to be born were very harsh and it required a great amount of luck. Secondly, it took a long time for them to form. Any artifact with an artifact spirit was at least 1,000 years old. Once an artifact had an artifact spirit, the power it could display would dramatically increase. Because of this, some cultivators had developed amazing methods to artificially create artifact spirits with monster beast spirits. After hunting down a powerful monster beast, they would use a secret method to extract its soul from its body, then seal it into an artifact. Then, with enough time and effort, it was possible to slowly transform this soul into an artifact spirit. This method was extremely bloody and cruel, and the sacrificial process was incredibly inhumane. The monster beast spirit sealed inside the artifact would experience unimaginable torture during the process, so even if the process ultimately succeeded, the artifact would inevitably become malevolent. However, there was still a massive gap between this kind of artificial artifact spirit and one which was created naturally. Although an artificial artifact spirit could still enhance the power of an artifact, it wouldn't be so astonishing. The success rate for this method was quite low and it consumed a large amount of time and resources, so no one except those who cultivated evil secret arts and had immense patience would try to artificially create an artifact spirit, not to mention that very few even knew how to. The artifact spirit Xianxia encountered this time was an orthodox existence. It wasn't an evil artificial artifact spirit created by some cultivator. It lacked a malevolent aura, so it was clear that this artifact refining furnace had given birth to it through a series of chance coincidences. Although this artifact refining furnace wasn't an artifact used for battle, it was also not low-grade. The presence from this strange bird artifact spirit pressured Xianxia greatly. Seeing it dive towards him, Xianxia's entire field of vision was filled with fiery red, as if the entire stone chamber had been filled with an incomparably hot fire aura and nothing else could be seen. Xianxia could only silently hope that this spirit had only been born a short time ago and had not achieved true sentience. As he quickly retreated, Xianxia summoned his purple shield and madly poured his Saint Qi into it, creating a violent sandstorm around his body for protection. However, as soon as this sandstorm appeared, the scarlet firebird spread its wings and whipped up an intense gust mixed with numerous scorching hot blades of flame that immediately broke open the sandstorm barrier. The fierce wind fanned the intense flames, multiplying its power. This firebird's strength was dreadful and caused Xianxia's breathing to cease and his heart to clench. A demonic flame sword appeared in his hand and he slashed the air in front of him. Pung pung pung. A series of loud explosions rang out as the red-hot blades were struck by the jet-black sword, the two mutually annihilating each other. But the number of flame blades was unlimited while the sword waves Xianxia could send out were not, so he quickly found himself at a disadvantage. A casual strike from this scarlet firebird held such incredible might. Xianxia waved his hand and summoned the 100 Mountains picture, drawing out one of the peaks from inside it before sending it crashing towards the red storm of blades. A look of disdain and ridicule flashed across the eyes of the scarlet firebird, and it beat its wings once more. The flame blades, which had not yet been destroyed, transformed into tiny fire snakes that flew around the 100 Mountains picture peak before continuing towards Xianxia. After seeing this kind of human-like expression, Xianxia felt his heart sink as he cursed to himself. This artifact spirit had not only achieved sentience, but its intelligence and cognizance had also reached quite a high level. Otherwise, how could it have shown such a look? What's more, since this spirit was born from an artifact refining furnace, it was inherently proficient in fire attribute laws and methods. It was unwise to fight against it in this small stone chamber. Xianxia instantly decided to withdraw. At the same time as he sent out a bunch of black fireballs, Yang Kai's divine sense moved, and he used his Yuan control mastery to shape these fireballs into a series of snake-like attacks to counter the Firebird's onslaught. The red and black snakes collided with one another, constantly biting and devouring each other, seemingly forming a kind of deadlock. Taking this opportunity, Yang Kai retreated. He didn't want to fight in this space against such an artifact spirit. However, the Firebird's thoughts were extremely sharp, and it realized what Yang Kai wanted to do at a glance. Cocking its head back, the Firebird spat out a basin-sized fireball, and that contained a massive amount of fire attribute energy, causing Yang Kai's heart to jump. If he were to be hit by this fireball, he would be seriously injured, if not dead, so Yang Kai hurriedly dodged. The strange bird seemed to have known that Yang Kai would take such actions, and the look of disdain on its face grew even thicker. The fireball flew past Yang Kai and burst apart at the entrance to the room. However, instead of the fire attribute energy dissipating, it transformed into a red light curtain that sealed up the exit. Yang Kai's face sank. The scarlet Firebird unexpectedly wanted to trap him here. Under normal circumstances, this kind of simple barrier wouldn't be able to bar Yang Kai's path, and with some slight effort, he could break through it. However, with the artifact spirit eyeing him covetously, how could Yang Kai have the time to break through this red light curtain? Once he tried, it would only leave him vulnerable to the artifact spirit's attacks. Damn bird! You brought this on yourself. Yang Kai's face filled with wrath, no longer thinking about retreating, and instead fiercely pushing the demonic flames rumbling outside his body, transforming himself into a giant black fireball. The black flames seemed capable of burning everything in existence, even the light which touched it, making it basically impossible to see Yang Kai's true face anymore. Seeing Yang Kai become enraged, the look of mockery on the strange bird's face disappeared as it seemed to realize it had made a mistake. The person in front of it was not some soft persimmon that could casually be pinched, and forcing him to remain wasn't a wise choice. However, it was just an artifact spirit. Although it had achieved a high degree of sentience, it wouldn't think about such things too deeply. With a loud screech, it sent out an invisible attack that tore through Yang Kai's knowledge sea defenses and directly impacted his soul. Inside Yang Kai's knowledge sea, the water and flames tumbled chaotically. Yang Kai cursed loudly as he desperately suppressed the abnormal condition of his knowledge sea, while simultaneously waving his hands to fill the stone chamber with black flames. The demonic flames poured out from Yang Kai's body and soon occupied half of the room, as they resisted the pure fire aura coming from the scarlet Firebird. The situation inside the stone room suddenly became quite strange, with half of it near the entrance filled with opaque pitch-black darkness, while the other half was a sea of blisteringly hot red fire. The two energies collided fiercely at the urging of Yang Kai and the scarlet Firebird. The entire stone chamber shook under the fierce collisions of energy, with the ground, ceiling, and stone walls constantly flickering with light as its defensive arrangements blocked the various explosive shockwaves. Fortunately, this place was designed for the most outstanding artifact refiner of a great sect to refine, so it had been equipped with numerous protective spirit arrays. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for a plain stone room to withstand the fallout from Yang Kai and the artifact spirit's battle. The black and red light continued to collide, both refusing to yield to the other. Yang Kai's expression was dignified, and the elegant body of the scarlet Firebird was constantly twisting, a series of strange noises constantly escaping from its mouth. This confrontation lasted an incense stick worth of time before the stone chamber returned to its former appearance. Yang Kai and the artifact spirit stared at each other from across the distance, both realizing that a frontal collision like this was pointless. Yang Kai couldn't have imagined that a trivial artifact spirit could actually fight him evenly. Yang Kai knew his own strength better than anyone. Even if he were to encounter a first-order origin returning realm master, if the opponent was the slightest bit careless, he was confident he could severely injure them. As for whether he could kill such a master, that would depend more on his opponent's means. However, this artifact spirit was not inferior to him. This was just an artifact spirit without a master, which meant it couldn't even exert its full strength. If this artifact spirit was controlled by a master, Yang Kai was certain he wouldn't be its opponent. An artifact spirit wasn't a true entity, It was an existence tied to an artifact, and only through it could it display its completely might. He was struggling so hard to fight a handicapped opponent, if he were to be facing this firebird's true power. Just as Xianxia was thinking so, his face suddenly changed, and his expression grew far more solemn. Not even hesitating, Xianxia condensed over 100 grand heavenly shields in front of himself while at the same time summoning his purple shield. The artifact spirit was showing a wild and violent appearance, and the artifact refining furnace, which had silently been sitting at the center of the stone chamber, was also humming audibly. Immediately, the artifact refining furnace flew up into the air and began rapidly spinning, shooting out clusters of red-hot flames that shot into the firebird's body. Suddenly, the firebird's aura increased dramatically, and an oppressive feeling spread out from it. Xianxia's face instantly went pale as he exclaimed, "Sure!" This artifact spirit actually understood how to use sure that only origin-returning realm masters could comprehend. Didn't Qiantong say that sure couldn't exist inside the flowing flame sand field? Once a cultivator who had comprehended sure entered the flowing flame sand field, they would instantly be incinerated. It was for this reason that no origin-returning realm master could enter this place, and why for all previous openings of this forbidden zone only Saint Kings had entered. But when this strange bird used sure, nothing happened to it. Quickly, however, Xianxia noticed that this power was only similar to sure, and wasn't sure itself. This firebird had manipulated the rich fire aura inside this stone room and taken advantage of the surrounding world energy to display this profound method. Worthy of a fire attribute artifact spirit, this firebird was truly skilled at manipulating fire attribute world principles, shocking Xianxia greatly. This was the second time Xianxia had fallen into this kind of strange field. The last time was when he fought against Xiehong Wen's origin-returning realm guard outside Dragon Cave Mountain. However, his opponent's sure back then was incomparable to the one he was currently facing. The last time Xianxia was wrapped in sure, although his actions became somewhat sluggish, he didn't feel too much pressure. Currently, Xianxia felt extremely heavy, and his bones were making creaking sounds as his legs threatened to give out. Even something as simple as moving his fingers was nearly impossible. There seemed to be an invisible set of chains wrapped around him, locking him firmly in place, rendering him unable to move. Even his divine sense and Saint Qi were locked firmly inside his body, making it impossible for Xianxia to gather any strength.